Chapter 34-32. The three of them had a strong heart, especially Yi Shiwen's existence. He was like a beacon that pointed out the path for their future development. With Yi Shiwen acting as their support, they naturally didn't have to worry about any fatal threats. They could fight to their heart's content and train themselves. After giving some instructions, Yi Shiwen immediately set off. This time, he didn't need to meet up. He already had a rough map of the era battlefield, so he naturally knew where to go. Although north and south couldn't be distinguished in the chaos, as long as there was a reference point, then everything would be fine. In the past, he used the Fortune God Dynasty as a reference point. Now, he used Sun City as a reference point. A three-dimensional map quickly formed in Yi Shiwen's mind. Soon, the four of them flew out of Sun City and entered the endless chaos. The chaos was endless. There was no day, no night, and there was no such thing as in all directions. Even the sky above Sun City was endless chaos. There was only a sun above Sun City that shone brightly, allowing Sun City to shine eternally and never have nightfall. Yi Shiwen and the others immediately felt the primal chaos energy washing over their bodies after they entered the primal chaos. Yi Shiwen was fine. This primal chaos energy couldn't really hurt him. It would automatically be refined once it reached his body. The primal chaos energy that was close to him couldn't keep up with his refining process. This primal chaos energy had even become an important aid in helping him comprehend the primal chaos law. Compared to him, Bian Xiaoya and the others were undoubtedly in a much more difficult situation. In the chaos, the closer they were to the Fortune God Dynasty, the more they would be affected by the laws of the Fortune God Dynasty. It was relatively calm. Here, they were already very far from the Fortune God Dynasty, so the chaos energy was very violent. Even emperors like them, who had indestructible bodies, felt very strenuous. It was as if endless chaos energy was constantly attacking their bodies. However, they quickly reacted and quickly mobilized their cultivation to absorb the chaos energy into their bodies to refine it. However, the chaos energy was different from spiritual energy. It was much more violent. Even with their tempered bodies, they still felt like they were being cut by knives when the chaos energy entered their meridians. There was a pained expression on their faces. It was a pain that reached the depths of their souls. However, they were all strong-willed people. Even so, they still continued to absorb and transform. After an unknown amount of time, when they felt that they had gradually gotten used to it, they discovered that their physical cultivation, which was originally very difficult to improve, had actually improved. This was especially true for Bian Xiaoya, who cultivated the Great Azura Body, which was a very domineering body cultivation technique. However, her current cultivation was very close to that of the Azura Demon Lord of the past. Although there was still a gap in cultivation level, it was much smaller than the gap between a quasi-emperor and a sovereign. In theory, the possibility of her breaking through by a large margin was already very small. It could be said that she was already infinitely close to her limit. But now, with the help of the primal chaos chi, she had improved again. It was no longer a gradual improvement, but an obvious improvement. She was immediately overjoyed. However, Yi Shiwen's words echoed in her ears at this time. Don't get distracted. Focus on refining the primal chaos chi and hurry on with your journey. Hearing this, she quickly focused on refining the primal chaos chi. As for hurrying on with their journey, she wouldn't go wrong as long as the primal chaos chi was guided by Yi Shiwen. She didn't have the skill that Yi Shiwen had. He couldn't multitask. The primal chaos chi couldn't cause fundamental damage to him. If she didn't pay attention, she might be invaded by the primal chaos chi and cause irreparable damage. Everyone moved forward. There was no space and no time in the primal chaos chi. They didn't know how long they had walked. Suddenly, a huge black shadow jumped out and went straight towards everyone. Reckless beast. Yi Shiwen could see at a glance that was a primal chaos creature. However, it dared to attack them. Wasn't it courting death? Xiaoya, you go. Yi Shiwen directly assigned. Bian Xiaoya was still refining the primal chaos chi. However, she didn't have the slightest bit of stage fright. She directly rushed forward and blasted out the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. The 6 fist techniques had completely merged into one in her hands and exerted a huge power. She cultivated the Azura body and the devil power that Yi Shiwen had specially modified for her. Coupled with the complete 6 paths of reincarnation fist, she was like a fish in water. She erupted with unimaginable power. Bang! Bian Xiaoye's fist blasted on the figure. Suddenly, the figure of this huge creature was stopped. At this time, everyone could see what kind of monster it was. It looked like a fierce snake. However, its body was huge. Just the head of the snake was hundreds of meters tall. The entire snake's body was hundreds of miles long. This huge, fierce snake was only slightly sluggish after being hit by Bian Xiaoye's fist. It didn't collapse. One must know that Bian Xiaoye's current fist strength could even penetrate a world. However, this monster was only slightly sluggish. The creatures that grew in the primal chaos were very strange and very powerful. This primal chaos creature hadn't reached the Emperor realm yet, but it could temporarily fight on par with Bian Xiaoye, who was in the Emperor realm. The entire primal chaos was stirred up by the battle between the two parties. Primal chaos aura spread out from top to bottom. Bian Xiaoye used her sovereign lord-level laws to protect herself, while this primal chaos creature had grown up in the primal chaos, so there was nothing to fear. For a moment, it was hard to tell who would win. But soon, Bian Xiaoye, who had the upper hand in both martial arts and realms, steadily gained the upper hand. Another palm fell, and this primal chaos creature's body was smashed into pieces. It was injured and howling in pain. It retreated again and again. Bian Xiaoye, who had grasped the opportunity, would not let go of such a good opportunity. She bluntly and neatly used the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. In just a moment, this primal chaos fierce snake was already covered with cuts and bruises. It was drenched in blood. Then, another sword slashed down with the Tai's sovereign sword. She displayed the buried sword technique and directly penetrated the body of this primal chaos fierce snake. Its spirit was destroyed. At this time, Bian Xiaoye, who had just become an emperor, was in the same situation as Yi Shiwen, who had just become a heavenly master. She hadn't had time to refine her own Dao tool. However, she had the Tai sovereign sword that Yi Shiwen had given her previously. It came in handy at the critical moment. She launched a fatal blow and killed this primal chaos fierce snake. Chapter 34-33. There seemed to be nothing in the chaos, but in fact, there were many ferocious creatures. The Fortune God Dynasty's experts on the battlefield had no choice but to build a city to protect themselves. Part of the reason was to guard against these chaos creatures. The 4 of them continued forward and soon arrived at the first city on the map. The 4 of them flew at high speed, crossing the distance of a world in a single shift. They could have teleported directly through the transmission array, but the surrounded city had been cut off from the surrounding areas. Even the transmission array couldn't be used directly. There were also array masters in the ancient era. Since it was built in the chaos, even if it was just a satellite city of Moon City, it was in fact very majestic. It wasn't inferior to many famous cities of the Fortune God Dynasty. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to establish a foothold in the chaos. But at this time, this majestic city was besieged by countless experts. They were densely packed like ants attacking a city, advancing wave after wave without fear of death. There were all kinds of people on these experts. Some were humanoid, some were ferocious beasts, some were semi-illusory, and some were covered in crystals. Not only did they belong to different races, but Yi Shiwen could even see through their auras and laws at a glance. They should belong to different eras. Their bodies exuded a huge slave character. It was a language that Yi Shiwen had never seen before. But with Yi Shiwen's current cultivation, he only needed a glance to decipher any character. This was because any character was used to express and describe everything in the world. After one's cultivation reached a certain level, any ancient character was no longer a problem. One could see through it at a glance. After reaching the heavenly venerable realm, One could even easily decipher the characters of the ancient era before the Great Apocalypse. With Yi Shiwen's eyesight, he could naturally see that the reason these experts from different eras were risking their lives to attack the city walls was because of the slave character. It was a kind of restriction. If they didn't obey, they would die instantly. Rather than that, it was better to go all out. If they could break through this satellite city, they could still live. What was even more cruel was that even if these experts were killed, the slave restriction on their bodies would instantly activate and form a big explosion. Even the incomparably sturdy city wall would be blasted into many stone chips. The impact of 1 or 2 explosions might not be that great, but if there were too many of them, the city wall of this satellite city would still be riddled with cracks. This method of besieging a city by ants was too cruel. These people should just be cannon fodder to deplete the city's defense. The real big thing was still at the back. In the distance of this satellite city, there was a dense army. This army was much more uniform. They were all from the same race, and their demonic auras soared to the sky. Even the image of a peerless demon was formed at the head of the army. And in the depths of the army, battle fortresses were being activated. Terrifying beasts as huge as stars were lying dormant in the fortress. Their huge eyes were wide open, and they were ready to attack at any time. And in the most central area of the army, incomparably powerful magicians were pinching their hands and chanting. Terrifying demonic power was released from their hands and turned into terrible heavy hammers. They constantly cut through the sky and fell on the defense of the satellite city. Every time they hit, the entire satellite city would tremble. It's the devil era. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said, he had long heard that those ancient eras would also fight against each other, plunder each other's experts as slaves, and plunder each other's resources. Among these eras, the devil era was especially cruel. Now that he saw it, it was indeed extremely cruel. On the other hand, Bian Xiaoye and the other two's expressions changed slightly. Based on their cultivation, it was hard for any problems in their cultivation to affect them, but this kind of terrifying battle mode was rarely seen in the Fortune Divine Dynasty. Compared to the war on the battlefield of the eras, the internal war of the Fortune God Dynasty was not too shocking. Yi Shiwen directly released the human race's army. An army of over 1 million appeared in the chaos space. Moreover, they were all elites. Their imposing manner soared to the sky and soon attracted the attention of the Devil Era's army. They immediately understood that the Fortune God Dynasty had sent reinforcements and immediately sent 1 million Devil Era's army to stop them. The human race's army, which had just entered the chaos space, was not used to it. But Yi Shiwen immediately used his magic power to protect them. Unlike Emperor Realm experts, they could walk in the chaos space with their physical bodies, but they would encounter some trouble. But Yi Shiwen saw that the Devil Era's people could walk freely without any trouble. It was not because their cultivation was high, but because they must have some other means. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen opened his heavenly eye and directly saw through the Devil Era's grand formation. He immediately understood that they had a special armor that allowed them to walk in the chaos space. It was just that they couldn't walk for a long time. For an army to travel, they had to rely on special artifacts. Of course, there were also super powerhouses like Yi Shiwen who led the army. After understanding this, Yi Shiwen immediately refined it on the spot. With his current cultivation, refining 1 million sets of armor was a piece of cake. Moreover, the heavenly treasures he had obtained in his inner world were piled up like a mountain. As his cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, he no longer had any use for them. Now was the perfect time to refine all of them into armor. With a wave of his hand, he could give the human race's army a set of armor. With his cultivation, it was not difficult for him to protect them with magic power. But he had come to train the human race's army, so he didn't want to protect them so well. At this time, the Devil Era's army had just set out to stop them. It was enough to show that Yi Shiwen's refining level had improved. Yi Shiwen pointed at the Devil Era's army that had set out to stop them and said to Bian Xiaoye and the others, "Do you see the Devil Era's emperor inside? You go and capture him and kill him." In this army, A burly devil era's emperor with many scales covered his body like an armor was running around. No one dared to disobey his orders. Yishuan did not plan to directly intervene. Instead, he was carefully guarding against the possible appearance of the devil era's celestial master. Now, he did not know where the devil era's celestial master had gone. Otherwise, the devil era's army's attack would not end here. Understood. Bien Xiao nodded and immediately shouted to the human race army, "Everyone, get into formation and attack. Defeat them in one fell swoop and break the siege in the city. Crush them." The human race army quickly set out. Like a tsunami, thousands of soldiers and horses rushed towards the devil era's army. The two armies were like two huge waves crashing into each other. In an instant, people were thrown off their feet. Bone fragments flew everywhere and blood flowed like a river. This was the first time the human race army had fought against the ancient era's army. At first, they were not used to it, but they quickly got the hang of it. After all, they were the elites of the human race. In terms of quality, they were superior to the demonic era's army. Even so, they were not the most elite of the demonic era's army. Soon, the human army completely suppressed the demonic epic's army. Like layers upon layers of huge waves, they crushed all resistance. But at this time, a figure leaped out and went against the flow. With a loud roar, he rushed into the human race army. He did not attack the ordinary human race martial artists, but directly attacked a peak quasi-emperor. Clearly, he wanted to kill the top experts of the human race army one by one. However, at this critical moment, a figure leaped out. With a delicate shout, she turned into a 6 paths of reincarnation and suppressed the devil era's sovereign emperor. Dang! The devil era's sovereign emperor immediately felt the power of this attack. He did not dare to continue chasing and quickly raised his hand to block. Suddenly, he felt a huge force and his entire arm went slightly numb. Although it was expelled in an instant, he still revealed a shocked expression. The devil era's sovereign emperor was famous for his tyrannical physical body. There were not many who could fight against him. At this time, a woman in a white robe appeared in front of him. She clenched her fist and looked at him coldly. You are actually cultivating a demonic art left behind by my demonic Tao era. Ha ha, this is just right. If my dual cultivation technique can absorb the pure demonic art that you have cultivated for so many years, your cultivation will definitely improve greatly. At this time, the devil era's sovereign emperor was not angry. Instead, he was overjoyed. In his eyes, the woman in front of him was destined to become his plucking furnace. You overestimate yourself. Bien Xiaoya sneered. With a leap, she rushed forward and fought with the devil era's sovereign emperor. However, the devil era's sovereign emperor's cultivation was very high. He was above the 7th realm. There was a huge gap between him and Bien Xiaoya. You don't need to resist. With your strength, it is impossible for you to escape from my hands. The devil era's sovereign emperor laughed loudly. He did not dare to underestimate Bien Xiaoya's attack. However, the difference in cultivation was too big. It was impossible for her to pose any great threat. Just obediently follow me. You also cultivate the martial arts of the devil era. You and I are a match made in heaven. Coming to our devil era is the best choice. Disgusting thing, you think you can do it? At this time, a loud voice rang out. The human sovereign directly attacked from the side, while the sky-shaking thunder emperor flanked from the other side. When the three of them worked together to attack this demonic epic's sovereign emperor, Xiao Chun could no longer deal with them as easily as before. This was especially so since the heaven-shaking thunder monarch's cultivation was above his and not below it. Immediately, battle chi flew everywhere. Chapter 34-34. This Devil Path Emperor Realm expert was clearly a veteran. Even though he appeared to be flustered by the three people's attacks, he managed to regain his footing quickly. This was not the first time he had fought with the Fortune Divine Dynasty's experts, and he was no stranger to this era's martial Tao. Thus, it was relatively easier for him to fight. Although Bien Xiaoya's group of 3 had the upper hand, they had never fought against a Devil Era's Emperor Realm expert before, so the laws they used were different. For a time, even though he had the upper hand, he couldn't turn this advantage into an opportunity to kill the Devil Era's Emperor Realm expert. But because the Devil Era's Emperor Realm expert was being held back, the army he led could no longer block the human army. Although the scale of the Devil Era's Emperor Realm expert was about the same, there was a huge difference in the level of elites compared to the human army. When this difference was multiplied to millions, it triggered a qualitative change. Soon, the Devil Era's army was routed and retreated. They weren't a match for the human army at all. In this primal chaos, once they were injured, it would be a dead end for them, given their strength. In just a moment, they were all killed. In contrast, Yi Shiwen's incarnation was standing among the human clan's army. It was healing the injured from time to time and instantly resurrecting them to full condition. A phoenix was hovering above the army. Wherever it passed, all the injuries would be instantly healed, and it would participate in the battle in high spirits. In this situation that was akin to cheating, they weren't a match for the human army. At this time, the Fortune God Dynasty's people in the satellite cities also noticed the situation here. Initially, they were on the verge of despair after being continuously attacked, but at this moment, it was as if they had seen a life-saving straw. The Fortune God Dynasty's reinforcements had finally arrived. Although they had never seen these reinforcements before, and their races had never seen them before, judging from their aura, they were undoubtedly the Fortune God Dynasty's reinforcements. That was enough. Not to mention, their performance was so ferocious. In a short time, they routed the Devil Era's army of 1 million. This defeat naturally attracted the attention of the demonic epic's army. For the demonic epic's sovereign emperors flew into a rage. They turned their armies around and charged at the human army. They immediately charged out to assist the sovereign emperor of the demonic era, who was being held back by Bien Xiaoya and the others. At this point, they had already thought things through. If they continued like this, they would have to first eliminate the reinforcements from the Fortune God Dynasty, or else it would become a huge threat to them. Furthermore, a mere army of 1 million soldiers had 3 sovereign emperors. This was a huge threat. Moreover, they had seen the combat power of the human army of 1 million soldiers. They had killed the demonic epic's army of the same number, as if they were chopping vegetables. This was a huge threat, and they had to deal with it first. After the sovereign monarchs from a demonic path era joined the fray, they quickly posed a huge threat to Bien Xiaoya's team. The sovereign monarchs from the demonic path era were all top-notch experts. They were all at the 7th or 8th level. Additionally, they had lived for countless years. Some of them had even survived before the Great Apocalypse. Their cultivation bases had reached a terrifying level. Bien Xiaoya's team would find it very difficult to deal with them, even if they were at the same cultivation level. Only the sky-shaking Thunder Emperor could barely resist them. As for Bien Xiaoya and the human sovereign, they immediately fell into a crisis. When Yi Shiwen saw that Bien Xiaoya's team was about to collapse, he finally made his move. He conjured a giant hand made of primal chaos chi and slapped it down. Not good. It's a heavenly venerate. The sovereign monarchs from the demonic path era instantly felt that this giant hand contained a terrifying will that was difficult to resist. It was as if the heavenly Tao wanted to kill them. They weren't unfamiliar with this feeling. They had also felt the same way when facing the heavenly venerables of their own era. These old foxes reacted almost immediately, but it was useless. Under the might of this power, they could only resist it slightly, even if they erupted with all their might. Then they were slapped. Just when they thought they were dead, they suddenly discovered that they were still alive. However, they soon discovered that their cultivation bases had been suppressed. They were directly divided into 3 battlefields. Bien Xiaoya and the sky-shaking Thunder Emperor each faced 2 enemies, while the human sovereign faced one alone. Their cultivation bases had been suppressed to the same realm as the other party. He didn't kill them, but he sealed their cultivation. Almost instantly, they understood why this was happening. They immediately felt extremely humiliated because they instantly understood why the other party's heavenly venerables wanted to use them as stepping stones to temper these three emperor monarchs. Immediately, they were enraged. Their originally ruthless character broke out, and they directly rushed forward to kill the other party. Perhaps they might have a chance of survival. If they knew from the beginning that there was a heavenly venerate hidden in this army of millions, they might have fled immediately and not dared to go forward. What joke! Although they were strong and had many hidden trump cards, they had no chance of winning against a heavenly venerate. Moreover, they were not even peak sovereign monarchs. However, they had no other choice now. They could only kill their opponents to have a chance of survival. They didn't know how many years they had lived. They absolutely didn't want to die here. Bian Xiaoye and the others naturally understood Yi Shiwen's intention. They understood that Yi Shiwen wanted to temper them. However, there was no time to say anything at this time. In order to survive, the opposite devil, Dao, Era's emperor, pounced on them like crazy. Even if they were transferred to the same realm, it was still very strenuous for them to face these old monsters who had lived for many years. However, at this time, the heavenly Dao was still in the Fortune God dynasty, so they still had the advantage. In the same realm, those old monsters from ancient eras often had the strength that they had accumulated over many years. Once they lost this advantage, they would immediately become much weaker. After Yi Shiwen dealt with this matter, he looked at the battlefield again. At this time, the Demon Path era's army of tens of millions was charging towards them. For the millions of human soldiers, this was undoubtedly extremely shocking. If they were not the elites among the elites of the human race, they would have gone crazy seeing such a lineup. Only in the primal chaos, where there was space everywhere, could such a terrifying army be easily deployed. Yi Shiwen attacked again. The Avicii sword appeared in his hand. Then, he swung it lightly as if nothing had happened. However, the terrifying and matchless Demon King Phantom that was condensed from the army soul above the Devil Dao Era's army seemed to have been slashed by something and instantly shattered. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. In an instant, countless Devil Dao Era's army coughed up blood. The army soul was the condensation of all their willpower. As long as the army soul was not broken, their combat strength would also increase greatly. However, once the army soul was broken, all the people who had integrated their essence, chi, and spirit into it would be seriously injured. Given the army soul condensed from the Devil Dao Era's army, even emperors wouldn't dare to attack it. Otherwise, they would suffer a severe backlash, and even peak emperors would be seriously injured. Therefore, when an emperor king faced an army of this level, he could only do whatever he wanted. However, it was impossible to fight against millions of soldiers alone. A single soldier would not be able to withstand a single strike from them. However, after they condensed the army's soul, they became extremely terrifying. However, with Yi Shiwen's strength, it was naturally not a problem. The power of the backlash couldn't even break through Yi Shiwen's defense. After coughing up blood, the army's attack came to a halt. This time, it was really a heavy blow. They couldn't even assemble a complete formation. Even the army's soul had been destroyed, let alone them. However, almost in the blink of an eye, the human race army had already stepped on their beams of light, fiercely stabbing into the battlefield like a steel blade. Wherever they went, they were invincible. Because the souls of the army had been destroyed, they could not even organize a decent counterattack. Many of the weaker ones had directly turned into idiots. Only some experts could react quickly. Their cultivation was more profound, and their recovery speed was faster. However, the scattered group of 30 to 50 people was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. They couldn't stop the human race army. In a short time, the human race army went back and forth several times. Everywhere they passed, the Devil Dao Era's army was annihilated, and they were utterly defeated. More than 1 million people were directly killed or trampled to death by each other. When the sovereign emperors from the demonic Dao era, who were fighting Bian Xiao's group of 3, saw this, tears of blood flowed from their eyes. These were the troops and elites that they had brought out from the Great Apocalypse. Now, however, they were being slaughtered like chickens and dogs. They knew that the Fortune God dynasty's heavenly venerables must have taken action. Otherwise, with the Devil Dao era's army's army soul's combat strength, even if their overall combat strength was slightly inferior, it would be very difficult for the human race army to resist their massive numbers. After a long time, they might even be swallowed up. They had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, but they couldn't resist the other side's heavenly venerables. This was a perfect confrontation between quantity and quality. The human race army had the advantage in quality, but they didn't have the advantage in quantity. However, with Yishuan's help, they had completely pulled back the advantage. Therefore, it was difficult to say which side was more powerful. Go all out. Kill them. The Devil Dao era's emperor's demonic nature erupted. They entered a state of bedevilment and began to attack crazily. Chapter 34-35. Although the human race only had 1 million people, with Yishuan's help, they were able to kill to their heart's content with just 1 million people. The Devil Path era's army was forced to retreat again and again. The Devil Path era's army simply couldn't organize a decent defense. Their entire army's spirit was crushed. At this time, an army of 1 million people quickly gathered on the satellite town and rushed out to attack the Devil era's army from the front and back with the human race army. Although they were not as elite as the human race army, the Devil era's army had lost its spirit. Even the human race army could not stop them and was forced to retreat again and again. The slave masters who were attacking the satellite town stopped one after another. At this time, the people who were controlling them could not even look after themselves. Naturally, they did not need to send themselves to death one by one. However, they did not take advantage of the chaos to escape because they were under the slave restriction. Even if they escaped to the ends of the earth, it would be useless. As long as the Devil era's people were still alive, they would die with a single thought. What was even more cruel was that if the Devil Emperors leading the Devil era's army died, they would also die and be buried with them. This was similar to the seal that Yishuan used on the sky-shaking Thunder Emperor, but it was more cruel. Anyway, they were going to die anyway, so it did not matter at all. Just as the armies of the human race and the Satellite Star City pincered the Demon Path era's army and forced them to retreat, a figure flew out from the Satellite Star City. It was a sovereign emperor. He went straight to Yishuan and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Your Honor. Junior Mu Huang represents the entire city to thank Your Honor for coming to rescue us." This was an Empyrean whose entire body was shrouded in a dark green aura of the laws, like an old tree. At a glance, it could be seen that he cultivated the wood laws. "Get up. No need to thank me. I was ordered to come to rescue you," Yishuan said with a wave of his hand. The Mu Huang got up and glanced at Yishuan. Then, he could not help but ask, "Please forgive this junior for not knowing Your Honor's great name. I am from the Fortune God dynasty. My title is Wu Zun. It is normal that you do not know me." This time, when the Fortune God dynasty heard that Moon City had fallen, they led the army to rescue us. I am just one of them. Now, all the armies have gone to different places to rescue us. Yishuan said faintly. "Is that so? That's great." Mu Huang was pleasantly surprised. In this period of time, they had encountered unprecedented changes. The Eternal God City that was known as the Eternal God City had actually fallen. Their satellite cities were right next to the Moon City. He knew that there would definitely be an army from the ancient era coming to attack them. He had been living in a constant state of anxiety, waiting for reinforcements from the other divine cities. Now that the reinforcements from the Fortune God dynasty had arrived, his heart instantly calmed down. "Are you the only emperor in your city?" Yishuan looked at the Wood Emperor. This Wood Emperor's martial power was quite profound. He also had the cultivation of the Eighth Realm. He wasn't inferior to the sky-shaking Thunder Emperor. However, Yishuan felt that he wasn't enough to guard such a huge satellite city. Originally, there were 2 other Taoist friends. However, the Devil Lord of the Devil Era had attacked us. Both of them were killed in that battle. I was also seriously injured. In the end, we could only defend passively. If it weren't for the Lord leading the army to rescue us, I am afraid that we would have fallen like the other cities. Mu Huang couldn't help but reveal a sorrowful expression. The two Taoist friends who had fallen in that battle were his comrades for many years. Extreme Tao experts like the Emperor were not emotionless. How could such a long-lasting friendship not hurt? There was a heavenly lord from the devil era? Why didn't I see it? Yishuan asked. Originally, the devil lord of the devil era was also participating in the siege. However, he seemed to have received some news and left, leaving only the army to continue the siege. Later, it was the Lord who came to rescue us. Mu Huang explained. Yishuan frowned slightly. If there was a demon venerable in the demon era's army, then the situation would be different. However, it didn't matter. When that demon venerable returned, he wouldn't be able to overturn the situation. Although these satellite cities weren't as majestic as the 10 great divine cities, it was impossible for a heavenly lord to break through them alone. This was because when these cities were built, they were built by heavenly lords of the Fortune God dynasty. They also had countermeasures against heavenly lords. Otherwise, there would be no need to mobilize the army. Just those heavenly lords could sweep through them one by one. Yishuan told the Wood Emperor about the 3 cities he was in charge of. Now he had rescued this city. Another one had fallen. Only the situation of the last one was still unknown. Reporting to your honor, as far as I know, the Demonic Path Epic's army is responsible for sweeping through this region. Now that the Demonic Path Epic's army has gathered here, they shouldn't have moved against the other city yet. Your honor can let them pass. Mu Huang paused and said, That's good. Yishuan nodded. If they broke through a satellite city, they would definitely be able to plunder a lot of resources and wealth. It was no wonder that those ancient eras had to sweep through the cities in batches and regions. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to divide the spoils evenly. Lord, now that I see that the other Taoists under you are having a hard time, do you need me to help? The Mu Emperor suggested. With his strength, he would naturally be able to greatly improve their situation once he made a move. No need. I'm doing this to hone them. Otherwise, I can easily destroy these devil era's demon emperors. Yishuan shook his head. Mu Huang finally understood Yishuan's plan. He couldn't help but be shocked. What grand plan! Using these devil era's emperors as stepping stones to hone his subordinates. Only a heavenly lord could do such a grand plan. Since Yishuan knew that the other city was safe and sound, Yishuan could breathe a sigh of relief. He didn't have to hastily end the battle here and rush to the other side to provide support. He could watch them fight. Although Yishuan had suppressed their abilities, it had also stimulated the ferocity from the source of life in their bones. Not to mention, in their opinion, this might be their only chance to escape. Therefore, Bian Xiaoya and the others were having a hard time fighting, especially Bian Xiaoya. Her cultivation was the weakest, and her realm was also the weakest. Now, she had to face 2 old monsters who had been suppressed by Yishuan to the same realm. At this time, she had also been forced to use all her potential. She no longer thought about the matter of Yishuan standing by the side. She only treated this as a life and death battle. At this moment, the mysterious creation pill that she had swallowed earlier was being refined frantically. Originally, with her skills, it would have been impossible for her to refine it in one go. She only needed to refine it a little. Just a little bit was enough to help her stabilize her realm. And now, in this life and death battle, the medicinal power of the mysterious creation pill began to spread. She only felt that the more she fought, the more profound her cultivation became. The more the battle went, the more it became smoother. Gradually, she didn't feel so uncomfortable. She gradually found her own rhythm and advantage from the airtight attacks of the 2 experts. The same was true for the other 2. As the core of the human race, they were naturally rewarded by Yishuan with mysterious creation pills. After all, during the trip to the divine capital of fortune, Yishuan had fished in troubled waters and obtained a lot of mysterious creation pills. For him, who had already entered the heavenly lord realm, the effect of mysterious creation pills was no longer that significant. But for these emperors, it still had a miraculous effect. At this time, they had gradually played their role. They were no longer completely passive. In fact, as time passed, the more they fought, the more intense the battle between the two sides became. The entire primal chaos exploded and tumbled. On the other side, the army of the demonic era, which had lost its military spirit and was a group of dragons without a leader, was finally annihilated after more than half a day of encirclement. In the end, not a single person escaped. All of them died in battle. It could be seen that although this wasn't the most elite army of the demonic era, it was still an iron-blooded army. But it was still useless. All of them were annihilated. Yi Shiwen stretched out his hand and crushed the flesh and blood of the demonic Path Era's army of more than 20 million. He refined them into medicinal pills that could increase cultivation and distributed them to the human race army. These medicinal pills were not very useful to him, but to the human race elites, it was enough to raise their cultivation by a small realm. As for the reinforcements from the satellite cities, everyone had a share. Yi Shiwen wasn't stingy. Immediately, these people were grateful to Yi Shiwen. The troops on the city wall who didn't attack were also envious. It was rare to encounter such a generous heavenly lord. At this time, Yi Shiwen could wholeheartedly observe the battle between Bian Xiaoya and the others. Among these three, Bian Xiaoya's strength was the weakest, but her progress was the fastest. After refining the mysterious good fortune pill, it was almost equivalent to gaining 100,000 years of power out of thin air. In a short period of time, it allowed her to reach the peak of the first realm. Thus, she had the qualifications to be on an equal footing with the masters of the two great devil eras era. She could fight against any one of them without falling into a disadvantageous position. Even if she were to face the two of them together, it would not be a problem for her. As for the other two, they were slightly slower. They had been emperors for many years and were stronger. However, they weren't as flexible. So, it was difficult for them to have such amazing changes like Bian Xiaoya. However, they managed to break through to the peak of their realm under the pressure of the enemy. The more these demonic era's experts fought with all their might, the more they wanted to break free. However, they became nutrients and stepping stones for the three's progress, allowing them to break through continuously. Chapter 34-36. The Wood Emperor was dumbfounded when he saw the cultivation of the three of them skyrocketing right before his eyes. He naturally understood that they must be digesting some kind of elixir. But even so, it wasn't easy for them to have their skills skyrocket under such pressure. This battle continued for another 10 days and 10 nights. But in this primal chaos chi was everywhere, so no one paid attention to the passage of time. They only felt that the battle was getting faster and more intense. Finally, the entire battlefield changed for the first time. Bian Xie sent a Devil-era expert flying with a punch, then turned around and suppressed another Devil-era expert with the 6 paths of reincarnation. They were different from Bian Xiaoya, who had most of their cultivation sealed by Yi Shiwen. The more they fought, the weaker they became. Finally, they could not hold on any longer and were hit in the chest, spurting out a mouthful of blood. The laws released from his body were also crushed by Bian Xiaoya's martial Dao laws. This era was the martial Dao era, so all the laws related to martial Dao were the strongest. The laws of the other eras, no matter how strong they were, will be suppressed by the heavenly Dao. This was already far away from the depths of the Fortune God dynasty. If they were in the Fortune God dynasty, it was possible that a First Realm Emperor would be killed by a quasi-emperor. After the collapse of the laws, he suffered serious injuries and spurted out blood. Bian Xiaoya's attacks fell like a storm. Bian Xiaoya had matured at an astonishing speed after experiencing the fight with the Emperor. In fact, her speed was even faster than Yi Shiwen had imagined. She really had the ability to kill in one move. She killed the Devil Emperor of this Devil era in one move, turning him into a sky full of blood and instantly killing his spirit. Without a restraint, Bian Xiaoya's speed increased, and she directly rushed towards the Devil Emperor of another Devil era who had just reacted. She erupted with terrifying attack power, and a series of attacks directly stunned the Devil Emperor of the Devil era. He did not expect that after being shaken back for a while and being held back by Yi Shiwen's incarnation for a while, his companion had already been killed. But soon he understood why his companions died so quickly. Bian Xiaoye, who had reached the peak of the first realm, had also exploded to an unimaginable level. Without his companions restraining him, he was no match for Bian Xiaoye at all. He couldn't even restrain Bian Xiaoye slightly. After another series of attacks, he exploded on the spot and was also killed by Bian Xiaoye. After Bian Xiaoye, another half a day passed, and the second person to solve the problem was Run Huang. After the mysterious creation pill had greatly increased his strength, his combat power could be compared to that of the veteran Demon Emperor from the Devil era, and it was even faintly stronger. Finally, he seized the opportunity to severely injure him and then kill him. Compared to the two of them, Thunderous Monarch's battle was undoubtedly much more difficult. How could it be easy for him to face two opponents of the same cultivation level? However, he gradually took the initiative. It took him another 10 days to seize the opportunity to severely injure an opponent and then kill him. However, at this time, he was also severely injured. In order to seize this opportunity, he paid a great price. Then, after a few more days, Thunderous Monarch finally recovered completely. He no longer fought with the opponent and killed the opponent with the Great Thunder technique. Although it took a lot of time, compared to the battle between emperors, especially with so many twists and turns, it was considered very short. These corpses were collected by them. They were all killed by themselves, so they had very high value. Not to mention the resources and wealth of the ancient era that these devil emperors had. This was completely different from the Fortune God dynasty, and it also had a great role of enlightenment for them. After killing the opponents, Bian Xiaoye and the other two came to visit Yi Shiwen. Especially in this battle, their harvest was huge. Yi Shiwen sealed the opponent's cultivation, so they could temper themselves. The three almost unanimously expressed that as long as they were given a little more time, their breakthrough would only be a matter of time. In particular, Thunderous Monarch was already in the 8th realm. If he went one step further, he would be in the 9th realm. In that case, it could be said that he had truly touched the edge of the peak of the Emperor realm. He was only one step away from those real peak Emperor realm. At that time, he could truly become the pillar of the human race, alleviating the awkwardness of the human race not having a real peak Emperor realm. As for Bian Xiaoye, she could enter the 2nd realm, completely breaking away from the ranks of the weakest Emperor realm. Her human emperor also went one step further, almost touching the threshold of the high-level Emperor realm. All of them had great gains. After quelling the Devil Era's army, Yi Shiwen called Bian Xiaoye, the other two, and the Mu Emperor together and said, "Lead the army into the city." Previously, the Mu Emperor said that there are heavenly venerables of the devil race in this area. I will go and search for them. Don't leave the city. Wait for me to come back. Yi Shiwen said. The heavenly venerables that the Mu Emperor had mentioned previously had always worried him. He decided to search for them personally. Naturally, he would not bring Bian Xiaoye and the others along. After all, a battle between heavenly venerables was not something they could casually intervene in. Even the Thunderous Monarch, who had the highest cultivation, could not withstand it. Yes, naturally, they did not dare to disobey Yi Shiwen's orders. They quickly led their troops and retreated into the satellite town. It was too dangerous to encounter heavenly venerables in such a chaotic place. Moreover, they really needed a place where they could cultivate in peace and have a breakthrough. After settling down, Yi Shiwen went straight into the chaos. With the support of the satellite town, even if they encountered heavenly venerables, they could still hold on for a while. After all, it was a satellite town built by the Fortune God dynasty. It was not just for show. It also had strong defensive capabilities. The first thing Yi Shiwen did was to rush to another satellite town. After confirming that it was indeed safe and that it had not been attacked, Yi Shiwen left. Although the Mu Emperor had mentioned it before, he still felt uneasy because he had not seen it with his own eyes. Apart from his satellite town, Yishuan flew for half a day and arrived at another satellite town. It was also the last satellite town that he was responsible for. Sure enough, it had already been captured by the Devil Dao Era's army. Devil Chi soared into the sky, and the Devil Dao Era's devil race was flying in and out everywhere. This place had already been transformed into a lair by the Devil Dao Era's army. Yishuan explored for a while and decided that he would first search for the Devil Dao Era's heavenly venerables. Then, he would lead the human race army to capture this satellite town. At this time, the defense of this satellite town had already been shattered when it was captured. The Devil Dao Era's people were rebuilding the defensive line of this satellite town with the array formations and barriers that they had obtained from their fortuitous encounters. Obviously, they hoped to stay here for a long time. After suppressing the idea of attacking, Yishuan continued to search in the chaos. He cleaned up a few chaotic creatures and collected their bodies. These were all good things that were extremely rare in the Fortune God dynasty. Yishuan even encountered many Emperor Realm creatures. They reached the Emperor Realm by relying on their instincts. However, they did not understand the Great Tao and could not live forever. After a period of time, they would die. Once they died in this chaos, even if their bodies could resist the corrosion of the primal chaos, they would gradually be corroded by the primal chaos. Suddenly, an unusual surge of primal chaos energy caught Yishuan's attention while he was still searching in the primal chaos. Soon, Yishuan followed the surging primal chaos energy and flew forward. He soon saw two silhouettes flying rapidly in the primal chaos. Their bodies were emitting rays of light that resembled sharp swords. They were cleaving the waves and cleaving the primal chaos. Two heavenly venerables. Yishuan immediately recognized them. However, these two heavenly venerables were clearly not experts of the Fortune God dynasty. They had the characteristics of the ancient era. One of them had the strong characteristics of the Devil Dao era. It was the Devil Dao era's heavenly venerables. The other was a woman in a light yellow dress. Her skin was as white as snow, and her facial features were exquisite. Her eyes were like a pair of amber, breathtakingly beautiful. However, the woman was clearly injured. Her light yellow dress had long been stained with golden blood, and her face looked extremely pale. The Devil Dao era's heavenly venerables behind her was tall and burly. His body was covered in black scales, and he wore a suit of armor. He held a long, decapitated blade in his hand. Every step he took was like a thunderclap exploding in the chaos. His entire person was like a meteor as he chased after the woman. Although the woman's face was pale, her speed was not slow at all. She was constantly shifting and flashing, and with every flash, countless runes would appear beneath her feet to form a grand formation. In the blink of an eye, she would appear countless miles away. Fortunately, Yishuan was also a heavenly venerables. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to keep up with the speed of these two people. He would have lost them in an instant. That Devil Dao era's heavenly venerables are most likely the Devil Dao era's heavenly venerables in this area. Could it be that he received some news and left in a hurry because of this woman? Yishuan guessed in his heart. However, he didn't slow down. He stepped on a golden light that turned into a teleportation array. His figure moved horizontally as he chased after the woman. The three of them moved horizontally in the chaos, one in front and one behind. The yellow-robed woman's injuries seemed to have worsened, and her speed finally began to slow down. The Devil Dao era's heavenly venerables behind her couldn't help but burst into laughter when he saw this. He said, "Heavenly Talisman Immortal, hand over your talisman, Dao era's supreme ancestral symbol. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape death today." Supreme ancestral symbol. Behind them, Yishuan couldn't help but be moved. Chapter 34-37. What is that? But it must be something good. Even the Demon King of the Demon Dao era is searching for it. How can it be something ordinary? Yishuan immediately made a judgment in his heart. It must be a supreme treasure. Saint Concealing Demon Emperor. Heaven Talisman Immortal gritted his teeth. His pale face was flushed with anger. Would you dare to speak to me like this if I was at my peak? Ha! Heaven Talisman Immortal, if you were at your peak, I would naturally give in to you. But now, you don't even have 1/10 of your peak strength. The fact that you can still stand after being hit by that palm is proof of your outstanding strength. But so what? Saint Concealing Demon Emperor laughed loudly. He did not deny that there was indeed a huge gap between his strength and Heaven Talisman Immortal's at his peak. But that was only when Heaven Talisman Immortal was at his peak. Right now, she was just a stray dog. Heaven Talisman Immortal was angry and anxious. He said angrily, "Don't think you can get away with it, even if I die. I'd like to see how long you can persist. Now that the Talisman Dao era has been destroyed, all your persistence is meaningless. Why don't you join us? Our Demon Dao era is all-encompassing. No matter what era you are from, you can join us and get your rightful position. As long as you hand over the supreme ancestral symbol, you will be able to make a great contribution. Our Demon Dao era might even let your remaining Talisman Dao era go. It's not impossible for you to rebuild the Talisman Dao era. However, you must be a subsidiary of our Demon Dao era and serve for our Demon Dao era to unify the world." Saint Concealing Demon Emperor smiled slightly. He was not in a hurry. It seemed that Heaven Talisman Immortal would not be able to persist. However, he did not think that he would let her go as long as Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable handed over the supreme ancestral symbol. How could that be possible? The Devil Epic only wanted slaves. Subordinates? That was a joke. Moreover, he did not want to hand over the supreme ancestral symbol at all. As long as he obtained the supreme ancestral symbol, given time, he would become an eternal powerhouse that could move unhindered across the world. He would become one of the top existences in the Devil Epic. Wasn't that better than handing it over and receiving a small reward? Although Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable didn't know what he was thinking, he knew how cunning the people of the Devil Dao era were. How could he agree? Moreover, the Devil Dao era had destroyed her Talisman Dao era. Her sect, her friends, and the foundation of her great Dao were all destroyed. Without the foundation of this era, she would never have the chance to further explore the great Dao in her life. The anger in her heart had already reached an unimaginable level. However, no matter what, she could not be considered to be at her peak. As she continued to circulate the power in her body, the palm that she had received became heavier and heavier. Very soon, it affected her speed, causing her to become slower and slower. The Saint Concealing Demon Emperor's speed was getting faster and faster. He kept stepping on laws. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before he caught up to her. Nothing could be more dangerous than encountering a peak Heavenly Venerable when she was seriously injured and had less than 10% of her strength left. This won't do. I can only fight him. Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable gritted her teeth. If she continued to chase like this, her strength would become weaker and her condition would worsen. She might as well turn around and fight him now. She might have a chance of winning. Suddenly, she heard a clear voice. "Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable, let's make a deal. As long as you give me the supreme ancestral symbol, I'll help you get rid of this guy." Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable shuddered. Someone could actually talk to her. This meant that there was another Heavenly Venerable nearby. Just the Saint Concealing Demon Emperor alone was terrifying enough, not to mention that there was another one hiding. Did the heavens really want her dead? Who's talking? Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable's primordial spirit expanded. "Who are you?" With this interruption, Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable did not want to turn around and fight for the time being. The Saint Concealing Demon Emperor was getting closer and closer, so she started to feel anxious. "It doesn't matter who I am. Just tell me if you agree or not. As long as you agree, I'll help you get rid of him. As for me, you don't have to worry about me. I'm on the same side as the Saint Concealing Demon Emperor. Otherwise, I can watch him kill you. You're injured. Can you still run like this?" The voice continued. "It's fine if you don't agree. In any case, I can watch him kill you before killing him and obtaining the supreme ancestral symbol. Who are you? Come out." Suddenly, Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable stopped and shouted in all directions. This action of hers also gave the Sacred Concealment Demon Emperor a fright, because he was in the middle of a chase, and her shout made him think that there was another person. If that was the case, things would inevitably turn out to be complicated. However, he quickly calmed down and sneered at Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable. Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable, you don't have to play such tricks. Do you think I'll believe you? The great Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable actually used such a despicable trick. If word gets out, it'll be a huge joke. Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable did not care about the saint-concealing demon emperor's mockery. Her beautiful eyes stared at the chaos and opened her heavenly eye, as if trying to find the person. Come out, there's no point in hiding anymore. Didn't you say you'll help me kill this guy? Let me see. Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable said indifferently. What? Sacred Concealment Demon Emperor immediately became nervous, because looking at Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable's expression, he definitely did not look like he was joking, because there was no point in deceiving him in this aspect. As long as she did not escape, she would still die. With her injuries, she would not be able to recover in such a short time. Otherwise, she would have already recovered. If there was really someone, then everything would change. Immediately, he shouted, "Which friend is here? Please show yourself." The saint-concealing demon emperor of the demonic era is here. Please show yourself. Yi Shiwen, who was hiding in the chaos, knew that it was impossible for him to continue hiding. He sighed in his heart. Why is it so difficult to obtain the supreme ancestral symbol safely? I could eliminate the Sacred Concealment Demon Emperor and obtain the supreme ancestral symbol at the same time. It would be killing two birds with one stone. However, Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable was obviously not easy to deal with. She used this method to force him to fight with the saint-concealing demon emperor behind him. She could fish in troubled waters. This woman was not simple at all. However, he did not care. The so-called conspiracy and tricks were only useful against those who were weak. He had absolute confidence. The saint-concealing demon emperor was only at the peak of the third realm. His realm was similar to Yi Shiwen's. However, in terms of combat power, Yi Shiwen was confident that he was invincible in the same realm. Although Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable did not know her true realm, he knew that she was not even 1/10 of her peak. Otherwise, she would not be forced to this extent by the saint-concealing demon emperor. Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable, what I said just now is still valid. Yi Shiwen's figure slowly emerged. Seeing his appearance, Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable heaved a sigh of relief. She tried her best to force him to come out and fight with the saint-concealing demon emperor. Yi Shiwen's stealth technique was very brilliant. If he was determined not to come out, there was nothing she could do. Fortunately, the other party seemed to be very confident in his strength, so she succeeded. On the other hand, the sacred hidden demon emperor's pair of demon eyes widened. He was just giving a try just now. Yi Shiwen's invisibility technique was very effective. In fact, he didn't even notice the slightest problem. He was just testing out a habit. He didn't expect that one of them would really explode. After sensing Yi Shiwen's aura, the saint-concealing demon emperor immediately became vigilant. An expert from the martial epoch. Encountering an expert from the martial epoch was not as troublesome as encountering an expert from the ancient era. This was their era. Naturally, they were favored by the heavenly law and were more difficult to deal with. When he heard Yi Shiwen's words, the anger in his heart suddenly rose. He was very afraid of Yi Shiwen, who suddenly appeared, but it did not mean that he was afraid. He was very clear about what the supreme ancestral symbol represented. He could not back down. Yi Shiwen did not look at the saint-concealing demon emperor at all. He looked directly at Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable and said, "Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable, you wanted to lure me out. Now that I'm out, I'll ask you again. Do you want to hand over the supreme ancestral symbol? I'll help you kill this saint-concealing demon emperor. Otherwise, I'll kill both of you. You know the Fortune God dynasty's attitude towards the ancient era. Killing one is a great merit, let alone killing two. Moreover, there's a great expert like you. I don't mind killing one more. Heavenly Talisman, Immortal Venerable, could feel that although Yi Shiwen's words were indifferent, the will in his words could not be disobeyed. If she did not hand over the supreme ancestral symbol, her life might really be in danger. She could not help but feel extremely sullen in her heart. When she thought about the destruction of the Talisman Epic, she felt sorrow in her heart and her eyes turned red. Suddenly, she said, "Okay, you help me kill him first. At the same time, promise me something else. As long as you agree, I'll give you the supreme ancestral symbol. Otherwise, I won't let you have the opportunity to take advantage of me, even if I have to self-destruct." Good, straightforward. A gentleman's word is as good as a whip. I'll eliminate this hindrance first. Yishuan finally looked at the Saint-Concealing Demon Emperor. At this moment, the Saint-Concealing Demon Emperor had no value to exist anymore. It was a good time to kill him to eliminate future troubles. Chapter 34-38. You're from the martial epic. The Sacred Concealment Demon Emperor glared at Yi Shiwen with a cold look in his eyes. Yi Shiwen's words had thoroughly infuriated him. The black scales on his body exuded a brilliant light like a galaxy. His eyes were cold like the edge of a blade. He waved the long blade in his hand slightly. It seemed ordinary, but it directly cut through the universe. A long river of blade Dao was slashed horizontally. It was as long as a galaxy, and it instantly slashed in front of Yi Shiwen. It's just an insignificant skill. Yi Shiwen stood in the chaos like an old tree with its roots deeply rooted in the ground. Then he clenched his fist and drew out the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation in the void. Compared to Bian Xiaoye's 6 paths of reincarnation fist, Yi Shiwen's 6 paths of reincarnation fist was more than 100 times more exquisite and powerful. Boom! Yi Shiwen's fist directly hit the long saber, and the collision immediately produced the most dazzling brilliance. These brilliance directly tore apart the chaos. Heaven and earth exploded, and the entire chaos violently shook. Even in the vast and boundless chaos, it was difficult to withstand such an attack. This kind of matchless divine power shocked everyone. Although there were no other spectators, the creatures of the chaos had already felt this power. Many of them immediately swam away after sensing this power. Most of them were still trembling on the spot, as if the heavens were angry. This was the battle between heavenly lords. Any random battle could be carved into the history books and become a legend. How dare you say that it's an insignificant skill of mine? The demonic sage concealment demon emperor attacked again, and a long blade in his hand burst out with endless light. Every blade turned into a shocking blade light, which turned into a silver river that blotted out the sky and pressed down. This kind of heaven-defying means was indeed frightening. In fact, it was even more terrifying than the Fortune Divine Dynasty's experts of the same realm. Although they might be in the same realm, compared to the terrifying experts who had experienced the Great Apocalypse, their cultivation years were still far from enough. This blade could split open a universe. It was simply too terrifying. Yishuan stood still. The Sacred Concealment Demon Emperor was indeed terrifying. It was almost too difficult to kill him in the same realm. However, he was not worried at all. The saber radiance came down, and everything around him was destroyed. It was originally chaos, but it evolved into a world and then returned to chaos. The profound meaning of life and death emerged continuously, and the aura overflowed. One could imagine how terrifying the collision between the two would be. However, he still blasted out a simple punch. In an instant, he felt that the world had stagnated. Even in the chaos, he could still sense the stagnation of the entire world. Especially, Yishiwen's beautiful eyes suddenly opened wide as he stared at Yishiwen's body. It was the flow of time, and it felt like it was flowing everywhere. He had a feeling that his understanding of time law had reached such a level that it could affect the chaos. There was everything in the chaos, but there was nothing at the same time. Therefore, it was almost impossible to affect the time in such a situation. The sacred concealment demon Emperor Saber was also very terrifying. He had already comprehended this Tao to an extremely profound level. Therefore, when he unleashed it, it was like thousands of waterfalls had transformed into a galaxy and suddenly fell down, destroying the world. However, everything came to a standstill. It was as if the entire timeline had come to a complete standstill in front of this punch. Wherever this punch passed, the streams of saber aura that were like galaxies would explode one after another. They were not a match for it at all. Rumble! Endless waves of explosions swept out in all directions in the chaos. Everywhere they passed, even the chaos was annihilated and turned into nothingness. It was too terrifying. 2 consecutive sabers couldn't do anything to the opponent at all. This also let the sacred concealment demon emperor roughly know that this guy in front of him was indeed not someone to be trifled with. However, he didn't really take it to heart, because he was also very strong. He swung the decapitated saber in his hand, crushing the chaos, and let out an unusually terrifying whistling sound. He directly slashed at Yi Shiwen's face indifferently and ruthlessly. He was obviously extremely conceited. The decapitated saber in his hand could kill any strong enemy. Its divine might was invincible. Once it was unleashed, it would be a big move. However, Yi Shiwen, who was in front of him, didn't have the slightest bit of retreat. He also smashed his fist. All of his martial Tao was integrated into his fist technique. In one punch, there were thousands of secret techniques and thousands of Tao. It was extremely terrifying and powerful. He also walked the path of big moves. Both of their fighting styles were similar, and they directly collided on the spot. Boom, boom, boom. In the blink of an eye, both sides had exchanged tens of thousands of moves. Heaven Talisman Immortal, who was standing at the side, widened her beautiful watery eyes. She felt stifled in her heart. Yi Shiwen didn't look like he was boasting. She could see that he and the devil Tao era's sage concealment demon emperor, who had experienced the great apocalypse, were evenly matched. Perhaps it would be difficult to find a match for him in the Fortune God dynasty. For the first time, she began to consider the feasibility of the plan in her heart. Finally, the 2 sides who were entangled in battle separated. She saw that the sacred concealment demon emperor was constantly retreating in a rather embarrassing manner. He was stumbling, and he was no longer as powerful and conceited as before. If one looked carefully, one would see that his hands were trembling slightly. There was a faint blood flowing down from the perlicue where he held the saber. In the beginning, he was still holding the saber with one hand and slashing at Yi Shiwen. However, after reaching the middle stage, he couldn't hold the saber with one hand and had to hold the saber with both hands to barely maintain it. In the end, he felt that his body was trembling even when he held the saber with both hands. He couldn't divert all the power, and the perlicue was bleeding from the shock. However, Yi Shiwen always used a simple punch in front of him. It was the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, a move of the fresh opposite heaven. It was just a simple attack, but it could break everything. The saber light of the sacred concealment demon emperor could only leave a deep imprint on the boundless nature palm in his hand. Huff, huff, huff. The sacred concealment demon emperor was constantly panting. His eyes were red, as if he was possessed. The demonic nature in his body was stimulated by him, and it was brewing. Yi Shiwen, who was in front of him, also turned blood red. The killing intent in his heart soared. After a short fight with Yi Shiwen, he had completely fallen into a disadvantageous position. This was an unprecedented situation. He had no choice but to use the demonic nature to enhance his skill. Although he would lose some of his rationality, it was all worth it in his opinion. However, Yi Shiwen, who was opposite to him, still had a calm look on his face. He didn't even gasp for breath. It seemed as if the battle a moment ago was nothing to him. The time robe appeared on his body, and its defense was astonishing. No matter how many saber lights hacked down, They couldn't break through his defense. The laws of time slowly appeared, annihilating everything. Seeing that the sacred concealment demon emperor was about to be possessed, Yi Shiwen shouted from afar. Could it be that the legendary heavenly venerate of the demonic epic, who can run amok, is only at this level? Then I'm really disappointed. Yes, he didn't use his full strength at all. He was just testing the demonic epic. He had never fought with the experts of the demonic epic before. It was rare for him to meet someone of the same cultivation realm, but weaker than him. He could use this opportunity to understand some of the characteristics of the magic of the demonic epic. After exchanging moves, Xiao Chun discovered that the demonic epic's magic arts were more refined and profound than those of the martial epic's demons and other experts who cultivated demonic Dao cultivation techniques. At the start, the demonic epic's magic arts were very similar. However, as time went on, the differences between the two grew. They represented two completely different great Daos. One was the magic of the demonic epic, and the other was the martial arts of the martial epic. They were different in the end. The more Yi Shiwen fought, the more he understood that the next time he met the experts of the demonic epic, he wouldn't be flustered. He would also be able to burst out with his full strength. Compared to the people from the Fortune God dynasty, the sacred concealment demon emperor and the heavenly talisman immortal clearly had rich experience in fighting with the experts of the martial epic. They didn't need to consider this aspect. Hearing Yi Shiwen's words, the sacred concealment demon emperor attacked again. He held the headless saber with both hands, and clanging sounds rang out. In an instant, he sent out thousands of saber lights. An endless scarlet saber aura spread out, drowning the primal chaos. This was a fatal blow. After the sacred concealment demon emperor fell into the demonic path, his strength increased by more than a little. He knew that Yi Shiwen absolutely couldn't block this attack. However, an even more shocking scene happened. The thousands of saber lights that he had slashed down all fell on Yi Shiwen's body, issuing a series of metallic clanging sounds. In an instant, all the saber lights bounced back. Before the destructive power contained in the saber could burst out, he was sent flying. Yi Shiwen's entire body emitted a golden light. He was like the only true god walking in the primal chaos, able to split heaven and earth. These attacks couldn't break through his indestructible true god. Die! In the endless saber lights, the true body of the sacred concealment demon emperor's headless saber was contained. It cut through everything and slashed at Yi Shiwen's face. At this critical moment, Yi Shiwen suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the headless saber in his hand, preventing the sacred concealment demon emperor from advancing any further. What? The sacred concealment demon emperor's eyes widened. His rationality regained the upper hand. The attack that he had been preparing for a long time couldn't break through Yi Shiwen's defense at all. This made him suddenly wake up. In front of him, the golden divine radiance on Yi Shiwen's body became more and more dazzling, illuminating everything around him. In the end, a terrifying power converged and turned into an attack that struck the sacred concealment demon emperor's body. The sacred concealment demon emperor immediately vomited a mouthful of golden blood, and his entire body was sent flying. Chapter 34-39. The sacred concealing demon emperor was hit by the attack, and his strong body was sent flying like a meteor. The power of this attack was truly terrifying. He first spat out a mouthful of blood, and he spat out many more mouthfuls of blood as he was sent flying. He felt like his body was about to explode, and he was seeing stars. How is this possible? How can his cultivation be so much stronger than mine? The sacred concealing demon emperor was also in disbelief. He had experienced the great apocalypse, and no one in the entire martial epoch could compare to him in terms of cultivation time. Although the current cultivation time and level of power could not be completely proportional, it would not be wrong in the same realm. However, this law was completely lost on Yi Shiwen. His strength was not just powerful, it was simply terrifying. He did not know that Yi Shiwen's body was already different from ordinary people after the transformation of the world tree fruit. His cultivation was even more profound and terrifying. When he just entered the third realm, he was already comparable to the peak third realm. When he entered the peak third realm, he would be invincible. Not only the sacred concealing demon emperor, but the heaven talisman immortal venerable who was watching from the side was also dumbfounded. Yi Shiwen's performance was also completely beyond her expectations. She had never seen such a powerful third realm heavenly venerable in her life. The sacred concealing demon emperor had already surpassed the peak third realm, and this was the limit of the limit. After the attack succeeded, Yi Shiwen did not let him escape. Almost instantly, he chased after him again. He suddenly stepped out of the array and instantly arrived in front of the sacred concealing demon emperor. The sacred concealment demon emperor roared out as he struggled to escape. However, it was futile as he immediately felt an immense pressure crushing him. He could not break free at all. In the face of this crushing pressure, his magic power, and his laws could not be used at all. Yi Shiwen's next attack fell almost instantaneously and blasted into his chest. Boom! The sacred concealment demon emperor let out a blood-curdling scream. Almost instantly, his physical body was torn into pieces and scattered into the chaos. This time, he no longer doubted Yi Shiwen's determination and strength to kill him. His body, which had been smashed into pieces, quickly gathered together and fled into the distance. How could Yi Shiwen do as he wished? He clenched his fist on the spot and ruthlessly bombarded it. Bang! The same concealment demon emperor, who had just reassembled his physical body, was smashed into pieces on the spot. This time, his primordial spirit was even weaker. He directly ignited his flesh and blood to cast a terrifying magic. Under the protection of this magic, his primordial spirit left his physical body and fled into the distance. Die, Yi Shiwen said coldly. A longbow appeared in his hand out of nowhere. The longbow was condensed from energy. The law arrow automatically took shape and then suddenly shot out. Boom! In the distance, the primordial spirit of the sacred concealment demon emperor let out a blood-curdling screech. It was completely annihilated by the arrow. After killing the sacred concealment demon emperor, Yi Shiwen quickly collected his physical body. He sacrificed it to the world tree to catalyze the fruit of the world tree. At the same time, he walked towards the heaven talisman immortal and said, "Can you hand over the supreme ancestral symbol now?" Facing Yi Shiwen, who came with the momentum of a great victory, the heaven talisman immortal did not play any tricks. From the battle just now, he had thoroughly understood that with Yi Shiwen's strength, it was really effortless to kill her. After all, she was not at the peak. The heaven talisman immortal nodded slightly and then flipped his hand. A talisman appeared. It was jade in color and almost transparent. There were many ancient law traces that Yi Shiwen could not understand carved on it. It was extremely mysterious. Yi Shiwen could even feel the terrifying power that far surpassed the heavenly master level contained in it. He immediately confirmed that the heaven talisman immortal did not lie to him. This is the supreme ancestral symbol. Yi Shiwen asked, "Yes, this is the foundation of our talisman Dao era. The supreme ancestral symbol is also the foundation that maintains our talisman Dao era. If it wasn't for the invasion of the devil Dao era, I would not have fled with it in such a hurry," said the heaven talisman immortal. This is the world that maintained an era? Yi Shiwen was secretly surprised because he also knew that it was impossible for those ancient eras to live in the primal chaos directly. They didn't form a city to protect themselves. Instead, they had their own world. They were chosen from the broken world when they were still the main characters of the world in the past. They had experienced the great calamity. In these broken worlds, the old way was still operating. Therefore, it was also their foundation. Once it was broken, the consequences would be unimaginable. The entire era's civilization would be destroyed. Even if someone could escape, it would be useless. when it was really the turn of the world to experience another great calamity. Who could protect them? In the primal chaos, without the protection of a small world, how could they escape from the great calamity? It was simply impossible. Therefore, it was easy to imagine how important this small world was to the entire era. This supreme ancestral symbol was actually maintaining the operation of a small world. One could imagine how magical it was. Yes, it was born from the body of our talisman ancestor. All these years, we have been relying on it to maintain the operation of the Talisman Dao era. However, I did not expect that it would be destroyed by the Devil Dao era in the end. The Heaven Talisman Immortal revealed a deep-seated hatred on his face. Talisman Ancestor, you should be very powerful. A bright light flashed in Yi Shiwen's eyes. One Dao Ancestor. Perhaps, the extent of his power was unimaginable. Of course, the Talisman Ancestor is powerful. Let me put it this way. He is on the same level as the fortune creation heavenly monarch of your martial Dao era, said the Heaven Talisman Immortal. There is actually someone on the same level as the fortune creation heavenly monarch? Yi Shiwen could not help but exclaim in shock. What kind of existence was the fortune creation heavenly monarch? He was recognized as the #1 expert in the fortune god dynasty since ancient times. No one dared to say that they could stand shoulder to shoulder with the fortune creation heavenly monarch. Whether it was the arrogant heavenly venerables of the fortune god dynasty or the unruly heavenly venerables of the foreign domains, all of them had to lower their proud heads in front of this name. You should be a newcomer who has just been promoted to the heavenly venerables not long ago, asked the Heaven Talisman Immortal suddenly. Yi Shiwen nodded and did not think much of it. He naturally knew that if there was something he did not understand, he should not be ashamed to ask. Only by always being humble and eager to learn could he always maintain the motivation to move forward. That's right. That's why you don't know about the existence of the fortune creation heavenly monarch. This level of existence is like a pillar in every epic, but not every epic can give birth to such a level of expert. Nothing will be left after the great cataclysm if an epic cannot give birth to such a level of expert. In fact, many civilizations have just developed to the peak, and the protection of the heavenly Tao weakened for them. Then, the ancient epic would rush in and destroy their civilizations. The only difference is the level of expert, said the Heaven Talisman Immortal. Your epic is very lucky to have such a heaven-gifted genius like the fortune creation heavenly monarch. When your civilization had just started to develop, he had already reached an unprecedented level. Later, he came to the depths of the primal chaos and built the current martial epic's defensive line to ensure the peace of your epic, including the countless worlds attached to your epic. Otherwise, do you think that your defensive line would have been built here? It should have been fought with countless ancient epics. Finally, the epic that can stand out in an extremely tragic war and produce that level of expert will be able to survive in the end. Those that can't be born will be destroyed. Survival or destruction will be in the hands of one person. Yi Shiwen was surprised. He had heard that some ancient epics had been destroyed by people in the past. However, he did not know that it involved the struggle of experts like the fortune creation heavenly monarch. Whether an epic civilization would prosper or be destroyed depended on the existence of that level of expert. However, this made Yi Shiwen even more envious. The symbol ancestor was such a powerful person. The supreme ancestral symbol that he left behind was naturally extremely precious. But if your epic had such a powerful person, how could it be conquered? Yi Shiwen asked. The heavenly talisman Immortal smiled bitterly and said, the symbol ancestor had already disappeared long before the last great apocalypse. Without the protection of the symbol ancestor, our talisman epic suffered heavy losses in the last great apocalypse. If it wasn't for the supreme ancestral symbol, I'm afraid it would have been destroyed long ago. However, it did not last until now and was finally destroyed by the demon epic. But you are willing to give such an important thing to me? Yi Shiwen suddenly revealed a playful smile. Earlier, you said that if I want to obtain the supreme ancestral symbol, I have to agree to your conditions. Tell me, what are your conditions? Then there's only one. I want you to help me destroy the demon Epic, said the heavenly talisman immortal. What? Destroy the demon Epic? Are you messing with me? Do you think I can destroy the demon Epic with my strength? Yi Shiwen's complexion suddenly turned cold. He felt that this woman was playing with him. Although he was conceited, he wasn't conceited to the point that he could destroy the devil arrow with his own strength, which had shaken many years. Don't worry, I am not that naive. I don't think you can destroy it now. With the help of the supreme ancestral symbol, your cultivation speed will definitely not be slow. Sooner or later, you will become an earth-shattering existence. It is not impossible for you to reach the level of the fortune creation heavenly monarch and the symbol ancestor. When that time comes, I want you to help me destroy the demon Epic and avenge my talisman Epic, said the heavenly talisman immortal in an extremely serious tone. Chapter 3440. As a terrifying expert who had experienced the great apocalypse, Heaven Talisman Immortal was naturally not a fool. She had not been stimulated by hatred to the point of losing her mind. Asking Yi Shiwen to take revenge now was undoubtedly like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. It was simply impossible to succeed. If I really reach that realm, I can fulfill your wish. But since the supreme ancestral symbol is so powerful, why don't you use it yourself? Yi Shiwen was still very puzzled. For Yi Shiwen, there were naturally many benefits to destroying the demonic Epic. Not to mention removing the threat that the demonic Epic posed to the martial Epic. There were countless other benefits. He did not want to go against his original goal, which was why he finally agreed. Do you think anyone will really let me go if I have the supreme ancestral symbol? Where can I run to? Even if I can wander in the primal chaos for countless years, I'll still die once the great apocalypse arrives. What's the use of that? Besides, without the manpower and resources of an era to support me, the supreme ancestral symbol won't be of much use to me. I'm sure you know the requirements for cultivation. Heaven Talisman Immortal smiled bitterly. If it was possible, she would be willing to hand over the supreme ancestral symbol. She didn't choose to escape when Yi Shiwen was fighting against the sacred hidden demon emperor. Instead, she chose to stay. She wanted to take a gamble. If she continued to wander like this, she would really die when the great apocalypse arrived. If she relied on a powerful force, she would also have to hand over the supreme ancestral symbol. She would be helpless, let alone put forward any conditions. It was simply impossible. This was the reason why she finally chose to cooperate with Yi Shiwen. Of course, Yi Shiwen did not directly choose to rob her at the beginning. He still gave her some leeway, which also made her have a good impression on Yi Shiwen. How about this? I know you still have doubts in your heart. I swear to God that I will not do anything harmful to you in this life. But what is your name? You haven't introduced yourself. Heaven Talisman Immortal looked at Yi Shiwen and asked. Her expression was very serious. This kind of oath was made to the heavenly way. The more powerful the expert, the more difficult it was to make an oath easily, because the heavenly way would catch it. If she could not fulfill it or violate the oath, she would suffer the wrath of heaven. Once she made such an oath, only Yi Shiwen could bully her from now on. There was no possibility for her to harm Yi Shiwen. This was the only way to gain Yi Shiwen's trust. My name is Wu Zun, and I come from the Fortune God Dynasty's eastern region. Yi Shiwen finally opened his mouth and said, You are a martial eminence. Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable was a little surprised, as if he had thought of something. Then, he closed his eyes and began to vow, Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable, swear that from now on, I will never do anything detrimental to martial venerables. If I violate this vow, I am willing to die without a burial. Within the primal chaos, a clap of thunder suddenly rang out. This was the acknowledgement of the heavenly Daos to this oath. If she violated the oath, the heavenly Daos would naturally come to deal with her. After listening to her swearing, Yi Shiwen said aloud, Why, you were surprised to hear my name just now? Have you heard it before? She had noticed a flash of astonishment on Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable's face. Something must have happened, otherwise it would not have been like this. Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable thought for a moment, and a strange smile appeared on his face. He looked at Yi Shiwen and said, I have indeed heard of it before. In fact, although I was seriously injured, I still managed to escape from the destroyed Talisman Dao era. Later, in order to gather information, I sneaked into the cities occupied by the Demon Dao era and heard a lot of news. Later, I was discovered by the Sacred Concealment Demon Emperor and was hunted down by him. Among them, there was news about you. No, I have just arrived at the era's battlefield, and I am not famous. How do the people of the Demon Dao era know about me? Could it be that someone in the Fortune God dynasty leaked the news? Yi Shiwen could not help but squint his eyes, and a stern look flashed in his eyes. Smart, it is indeed the people of your martial Dao era who spread the news. It is the famous city lord of Moon City, one of the 10 great cities of your martial Dao era. Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable nodded slightly and said, It is really him. Yi Shiwen squinted his eyes. Of the 2 possible names he had guessed, the most likely one was the City Lord of Moon City. According to what he knew, the City Lord of Moon City was unscrupulous and lawless. It was possible that he would do something disadvantageous to Yi Shiwen. No, it should be said that he would definitely think of a way to deal with Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen had never imagined that the City Lord of Moon City would let the people of the Demon Dao era make a move. Could it be that he is colluding with the Demon Dao era? Yi Shiwen's eyes flashed with a sharp light. You are a complete newcomer and don't understand. Although the martial Dao era and the other ancient epochs are enemies, it does not mean that the heavenly venerates under them are mortal enemies with everyone on the other side. For example, you and I should be irreconcilable enemies. However, in reality, that is not the case. The City Lord of Moon City has been in charge of Moon City for so many years. His foundation is already deeply rooted. His connections are also spread across the various ancient epochs. Although we are not friends of life and death, as long as he releases a portion of the benefits, there will naturally be people who will help him deal with the strong enemies. Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable said, Do you think the various ancient epochs are very peaceful? They also have opponents that they need to deal with. In fact, they even have opponents that they need to fight to the death. However, they do not take action themselves. At this time, they will secretly let the people of your martial Dao era make a move. In any case, your martial Dao era has a clear attitude towards the ancient epochs on the surface. In reality, this kind of cooperation is very common. The major characters of your martial Dao era have experts from the other ancient epochs who have come to join them. Experts who have come to join them? Yi Shiwen suddenly remembered the mysterious and unfathomable Mr. Huang beside the Eastern Heavenly Venerate. He was a great expert whose origin was unknown. He never made a move, nor did he speak. He only followed the Eastern Heavenly Venerate. Could it be that he was also a top expert from another era? I remember that the experts of the ancient epochs will be suppressed by the heavenly way of this era, right? Yi Shiwen could not help but ask. Yes, they will definitely be suppressed by the heavenly way of this era. However, there are ways to avoid it. It's just that they will have to pay a high price and consume a lot of wealth and resources. It just depends on whether someone is willing to do it for them, said the Heaven Talisman Immortal. This is also a very important matter. Therefore, not everyone can join the ancient epochs. After joining them, there are naturally many benefits. They will not be suppressed by the ancient epochs. They can enter the Fortune Divine Dynasty and cultivate in seclusion. They can also enjoy many resources that can only be produced in the ancient epochs and comprehend a completely different great way. Because of this, many people are willing to join them, although they also know that all the benefits will only be available before the great calamity. It is still better than nothing. I see. Yi Shiwen nodded. It was the same for Senior Heavenly Talisman Immortal. She used to be high and mighty in the Talisman era. Her words carried enormous weight, and no one dared to disobey her. However, It didn't make any sense now that the talisman era had been destroyed. Apart from the current era, like the martial era, which era had extra resources to support such a top master. Only the Fortune God dynasty could do so. Therefore, she had very few choices. In fact, she did not even have much leeway to choose. It was almost a certainty. But what kind of expert did the Moon City Lord hire to kill me? Asked Yi Shiwen. The Moon City Lord knows that you are a third realm expert. Therefore, he secretly hired a fourth realm expert from the Devil Dao era to kill you. You are definitely not a match for him. Moreover, he has already given you information and your location. Apart from a fourth realm expert from the Devil Dao era, there may be other people coming to kill you. When that time comes, you will not be able to call for help, said the Heaven Talisman Immortal. As part of the price, the City Lord of Moonlight City has promised to hand over the 2 satellite cities you're responsible for defending to them for slaughter and plunder. The City Lord of Moonlight City will do his best to stall them and not let them act. Good job, Moon City Lord, said Yi Shiwen. The Moon City Lord was really ruthless. He knew that Yi Shiwen was only in the third realm, but he actually sent a fourth realm expert. He really wanted Yi Shiwen's life. Moreover, he did not hesitate to sell the information of the area that Yi Shiwen was in charge of. He even sent countless creatures in the 2 satellite cities to be slaughtered by the Devil Dao era experts. He was extremely vicious. The killing intent in Yi Shiwen's heart intensified. It was not only because of the Yin Yang and the Unity Emperor, but also because the Moon City Lord did not have a bottom line. Yi Shiwen originally thought that he would cooperate with the Moon City Lord under the condition that he did not lose his bottom line. Now, it seemed that this was not the case at all. The bottom line that Yi Shiwen thought was not even worth mentioning to the Moon City Lord. The Moon City Lord could easily cross over it. No wonder the Eastern Heavenly Venerate and the others did not denounce the Moon City Lord on the spot for fear of harming the innocent. It was because the Moon City Lord and the others knew that when the Moon City Lord was forced into a corner, he would really do anything. However, it was precisely because of this that he was even more repulsive. The Eastern Heavenly Sovereign's warning to him to be careful was definitely not an empty threat. It was because I accidentally stumbled upon their plot that my whereabouts were exposed, and I was hunted down. Senior Immortal Heavenly Talisman said, looking at Yi Shiwen. You'd better be prepared. Don't lose to them in the end. If even the supreme ancestral symbol ends up in their hands, I'll still need you to help me take revenge and destroy the demonic epic. Don't worry. I'm confident that they won't be able to return this time. Yi Shiwen clenched his fists, and a fierce look flashed in his eyes. Chapter 3441. The Moon City Lord had indeed made a good plan. In the Fortune Realm, the Heavenly Gate tribulation caused by the disappearance of the Fortune Key had caused all the Heavenly Venerables to fall to below the Fourth Realm. Even the veteran Heavenly Venerables were in such a state, let alone a newly advanced Heavenly Venerate like Yi Shiwen. It was absolutely impossible for him to reach the Fourth Realm in such a short time. His guess was correct in a sense, but he did not know that Yi Shiwen still had many trump cards. Coupled with the existence of half a calamity breaking incense, it was only a matter of time before Yi Shiwen broke through to the Fourth Realm. At that time, no matter how many people from the Devil Path Epic came, it would not be a problem. This time, he would make the Moon City Lord go for wool and come home shorn. At the same time, he would remember this debt. Sooner or later, he would make the Moon City Lord pay the price. Venerable Heaven Talisman's beautiful eyes were like water, revealing a somewhat puzzled expression. She did not know how Yi Shiwen could do it. After all, the gap in cultivation needed time and effort to make up for it. It was not something that could be overcome in a short time. Could it be that he wanted to inform the Fortune Divine Dynasty's army to encircle and annihilate him? If that was the case, it would not be a bad idea. However, she inevitably looked down on Yi Shiwen. Since she had given the supreme ancestral symbol to Yi Shiwen, she hoped that Yi Shiwen would be able to do something. She had even pinned her plan to take revenge for the Talisman Epic on Yi Shiwen. If Yi Shiwen was only at this level, she would undoubtedly be quite disappointed. Even though she had chosen to side with him, to a large extent, because of the situation at the time, she still hoped that the person she sided with was a great hero who could hold up the situation. Yi Shiwen did not answer Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerate's doubts. Instead, he said, "Now that you have submitted to me, I will not mistreat you. If you want to wash away your old Tao and integrate into my martial epic, I will prepare whatever conditions you need. You don't have to worry about this. I can naturally handle it." Venerable Heaven Talisman shook her head and said, "Although I'm siding with you, I'm not your subordinate. The two of us are allies. I won't rely on you too much. I will handle the necessary preparations." Seeing this, Yi Shiwen did not insist. But he also knew in his heart that Heavenly Talisman Immortal was not sincere in surrendering and had a semi-independent consciousness. But because the Talisman Tao era had been breached, she was homeless. Anyway, she had to choose a new year to rely on, so it was better to rely on the rich and powerful Fortune God dynasty. This was the fundamental reason. However, it didn't matter to him. Sooner or later, Senior Immortal Talisman would sincerely rely on him. Before that, Yi Shiwen could have the help of an expert for free, which could make up for many of his shortcomings, including his lack of understanding of the ancient era and so on. All right, no problem. I won't force you to answer these questions. Since we already know that a great enemy is coming, it's time for us to leave and return to the satellite town. You also need a stable environment to recuperate, and it just so happens that we all need some time. Yi Shiwen said, "All right." Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable did not reject this time. The two of them were in a hurry, so they hurried back to the satellite town. They had just returned, and they immediately attracted everyone's attention. Yi Shiwen had been alone when he had left. But now, there was one more person. Senior Immortal Heavenly Talisman had arrived at the satellite star town. Her face was covered by a veil, and it was hazy, so no one could see her true appearance. Yi Shiwen opened his mouth and said, "This is Mr. Fu. You must treat him with the same respect as you treat me." "Greetings, Mr. Fu. I am the Moon Empress." Bien Xiaoyu quickly saluted and said. Everyone else also saluted in succession. It didn't matter whether Yi Shiwen's words were true or false. But, at the very least, he was a super expert of the Heavenly Master level. And he wasn't an existence that they could contend against. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable nodded slightly and did not say anything. "Would Emperor find a quiet place for us? I want to undergo closed-door training." Yi Shiwen said, "Understood." Wood Emperor nodded and said, "Oh, by the way, you must be careful next. Don't let your guard down, because I've defeated the enemy. There will be a strong enemy coming soon." Yi Shiwen directly reminded them. He couldn't let the Wood Emperor and the others get sneak attacked because they were careless. There will be a strong enemy? Of course, Wood Emperor wouldn't turn a blind eye to Yi Shiwen's warning. But he couldn't help but feel nervous when Yi Shiwen said that there would be a strong enemy. It must be a Heavenly Master level expert to be called a strong enemy by Yi Shiwen. But fortunately, Yi Shiwen was also in the city. They couldn't help but feel a little relieved. "Yes, there will be a strong enemy. You must be careful," Yi Shiwen said. "Arrange people to patrol day and night. For the next period of time, all the arrays in the city must be activated 24 hours a day. Don't stop for even a moment." "Understood." Wood Emperor nodded quickly. He was the leader of the city at this time. He was responsible for all aspects of matters and dispatching. After giving instructions, Yi Shiwen went to the place arranged by Wood Emperor for closed-door training. The place where Heaven Talisman Immortal was recuperating was in another place. Once he entered the state of closed-door training, Yi Shiwen immediately began to study the supreme ancestral symbol that he had just obtained. Sure enough, this supreme ancestral symbol contained countless information and knowledge of the Talisman Tao era. There was also an endless tide of energy. The knowledge was sealed in it. Even Heaven Talisman Immortal couldn't extract it from it. This was why Heaven Talisman Immortal couldn't decipher the key to the supreme ancestral symbol, even though it had been in Heaven Talisman Immortal's hands for many years. It only had one function: accelerating cultivation. Heaven Talisman Immortal gave the supreme ancestral symbol to Yi Shiwen as a test. But she didn't know that there was a mysterious space in Yi Shiwen's body that could analyze many things. Even the treasures left behind from the ancient era could be analyzed, but it still required a lot of wealth and resources. As he analyzed more and more of the supreme ancestral symbol, his understanding of it also increased. Although it was from the ancient era, the 3,000 great Daos always had something in common. Originally, Yi Shiwen only had a little understanding of the Talisman Dao. He didn't have a deep understanding of it. Among the 3,000 great Daos, it could only be ranked at the bottom. But now, as he analyzed the supreme ancestral symbol, his understanding of the Talisman Dao also improved at an astonishing speed. It was as if he was comprehending the supreme ancestral symbol's understanding of the Talisman Dao. It was constantly improving. Standing on the giant's shoulder, Yi Shiwen's vision suddenly became very far. What he could see was also different from before. As his understanding of the Talisman Dao continued to improve, Yi Shiwen could feel that his cultivation of the peak of the third realm was actually starting to advance a little bit. It was like 100 miles away after understanding one thing. After Yi Shiwen's understanding of the Talisman Dao began to advance by leaps and bounds, his other great Daos also greatly improved. His cultivation, which had been stagnant for a long time, actually started to slowly rise again. It started to automatically attack the fourth realm. Ever since he had entered the peak of the third realm, Yi Shiwen had already clearly felt the barrier left behind by the heavenly tribulation. It was the blockade of the heavenly Dao, which directly descended on his heart. It was unavoidable. This was also the reason why countless old celestial masters were trapped in this tribulation. Even so, it was because of the creation of the fake good fortune key. Many people had to face much fewer heavenly tribulations than before. If it had been before, Yi Shiwen would have had to face a much worse situation. Therefore, he had thought of ways to prepare himself for breaking through to the fourth realm. He had obtained half a tribulation breaking incense. It was at this time that he would break through to the fourth realm. As long as he succeeded and entered the fourth realm, he would be above the majority of celestial masters in the fortune realm. He would truly be qualified to compete for the position of Eastern Celestial Master. If he was only in the third realm, no matter how tyrannical his strength was, he would not be qualified. There was only a difference of one realm, but in reality, there was a clear distinction. After feeling the loosening of his realm, Yi Shiwen immediately stopped comprehending the supreme ancestral symbol. Instead, he began to break through to the fourth realm. If he wanted to deal with the next experts who would attack him, he would have to enter the fourth realm. He lit the tribulation-breaking incense. The incense turned into wisps of white smoke that surrounded him. It made him feel as if he was surrounded by clouds and mist. Every time he took a breath, he would inhale a large amount of smoke into his body. When this smoke entered his body, he immediately felt that his mind had become much clearer. His comprehension of the great path had also deepened. At the same time, a few cracks also appeared on the barrier of the fourth realm, which made him feel that his divine sense had become more sensitive. This half a stick of calamity-breaking incense was indeed miraculous. Just taking a whiff was equivalent to cultivating diligently for several decades. It was a pity that he only had this half a tribulation-breaking incense. Otherwise, his cultivation from now on would not be a problem. Any realm barrier would be nothing in front of the tribulation-breaking incense. It was a pity that the tribulation-breaking incense was too precious. Even in the Fortune God dynasty, it was incomparably precious. It was already very difficult for him to obtain half a tribulation-breaking incense. Just this half a tribulation-breaking incense was already priceless. Its value was immeasurable. As time passed, Yi Shiwen was completely shrouded in the smoke. His figure was only faintly visible. Every time he inhaled the smoke of the tribulation-breaking incense, he felt that his comprehension of the great path had deepened. Time passed second by second, while Yi Shiwen was crazily trying to comprehend this technique. Chapter 3442. Yi Shiwen spent a month in seclusion. This was a very short period of time for the entire satellite city. It was just that Yi Shiwen had warned them before that there might be a super strong enemy attack, so they did not dare to relax at all. All kinds of formations were activated at all times to avoid being caught off guard by the Celestial Masters. The city that had been captured in this area had fallen because of a moment of carelessness. After all, it wasn't one of the 10 god cities. If it had been one of the 10 god cities, it wouldn't have fallen even if an Empyrean had launched a sneak attack. Bien Xiaoya and the others were also digesting the previous battle, especially Bien Xiaoya. It was only a matter of time before she entered the second realm. All that was left was to push the boat with the current and push her realm into the second realm. In just a short period of a month, Bien Xiaoya successfully entered the second realm with the help of the mysterious creation pill. At this time, it was not many years before she became an emperor. If she had to cultivate by herself, it would take a long time. Sure enough, wandering on the edge of life and death was the best way to hone herself. It would only take some time for the human emperor and the sky-shaking thunder emperor to improve further. They were only a step away. Suddenly, at this moment, a terrifying coercion descended from the sky, directly wrapping the entire huge city from top to bottom. The entire city suddenly panicked. Because they were on the front line, they were very familiar with the aura of these super masters. They reacted almost immediately. Celestial Master. It's a Celestial Master. Many people screamed. An Emperor King level master wasn't enough to make everyone in the city lose their composure, but an Empyrean level master was different. They knew very well that if their city fell one day, it would inevitably fall into the hands of an Empyrean level master. Mu Emperor and the others flew out from various places in the city, especially Bien Xiaoya and the others. This was the first time they encountered a real siege of a city by a celestial master. The existence of such a level was completely different from a siege of an emperor level. However, they weren't in a hurry because they were also led by a celestial master. It would be difficult for the other party to deal with Yi Shiwen even if he was a veteran celestial master. As for Senior Heavenly Talisman Immortal, he had returned with Yi Shiwen. However, he had been forgotten by everyone out of habit. This was the so-called underestimation of the enemy. The million-strong army of the human clan immediately entered a state of readiness for battle, and a murderous aura rose into the sky. A huge hand suddenly appeared in the void and smashed down like a heavy hammer. Boom! This huge hand directly slammed into the barrier and array formation above the city. In an instant, who knew how many barriers and array formations were destroyed? If an Emperor Lord wanted to destroy the barrier and array formations here, they would have to spend a lot of time and effort. However, for a heavenly venerate, it was just a moment. The entire city shook up and down as if it would collapse at any time. Previously, it had already been attacked by the Devil Dao Era's army and the Devil Dao Era's Sacred Concealment Demon Emperor. It was no longer comparable to its peak state. At this moment, many people were panicking, but they didn't know where to escape to. According to the cruel practices of the ancient era, especially the Devil Dao era, once a city was breached, even if they weren't killed, they would become their slaves and cannon fodder. They would expand their territory for them until they died. No one wanted to end up like this. The confidence that Yi Shiwen had gained from defeating a strong enemy had completely vanished in this palm. Who are you? Which Devil Dao Era's expert has come? Please come out and meet me. At this moment, Bien Xiaoya, who had just broken through, flew into the sky. She could only see a vast expanse of space. She knew that it would be difficult for her to find the Devil Dao Era's expert. After all, it was a heavenly venerate existence. With her Emperor Lord cultivation, how could she deal with the Devil Dao Era's expert? However, she didn't care, nor was she afraid, because she knew that her omnipotent master was here, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Suddenly, a cold grunt resounded. A tall man from the demon race who was around 5 or 6 times the height of an adult, had wings on his back, and had 3 heads and 6 arms had appeared in space. After that, he stared fixedly at Bien Xiaoya and said, "You actually dare to resist the heavenly army? You're really courting death. I'll give all of you a few dozen times. If you still don't surrender, then all of you will die a graveless death once the city is breached." His words immediately made everyone panic. It was just a few dozen strikes, and time had passed in the blink of an eye. If they resisted stubbornly, then they would definitely die this time. 10, 9, 8. The Devil Dao era's expert's expression was indifferent, and he didn't seem to be moved at all. It was as if he was announcing something very ordinary. I didn't expect that the dignified extreme Devil Demon Lord would use such means. Suddenly, an extremely cold voice resounded from the city. A figure slowly emerged from the city. It seemed slow, but it was actually very fast. In just a moment, it had already arrived above the city wall. It's Master Fu. The Wood Emperor was pleasantly surprised as he immediately recognized this person. This was the heavenly master that Yi Shiwen had mentioned before. He was on an equal footing with the Wood Emperor. Now that they had an additional heavenly venerate on their side, they immediately felt much safer. If this continued, the city would collapse before the battle even started. "You are Heavenly Talisman Immortal." Extreme Devil Demon Lord immediately recognized the woman in front of him. "I didn't manage to capture you and let you escape. I didn't even manage to slap you to death. Now, you've actually fallen to the point of relying on the new era of the martial Dao era. Heavenly Talisman Immortal, aren't you afraid of becoming a huge laughingstock if this gets out?" Extreme Devil Demon Lord sneered, as if he was very surprised by Heavenly Talisman Immortal's appearance here. This time, he didn't come to hunt down Heavenly Talisman Immortal, but to kill the newcomer of the Fortune Divine Dynasty who had just arrived at the epic battlefield. However, it would naturally be best if he could get rid of this old enemy while he was at it. "Humph, do you think you still have a chance to spread the news? Don't even think of escaping today." Heavenly Talisman Immortal sneered, not to be outdone. "You really don't know what's good for you. But it doesn't matter. I don't want to kill you. It just so happens that our Devil Dao era has conquered your Talisman Dao era. I don't know how many books and records of the Talisman Dao era we plundered. I don't understand many of them, so I'll capture you and make you translate them for me." Extreme Devil Demon Lord laughed heartily. He had his own plans. The Talisman Dao era was once an extremely powerful civilization and era, so it was extremely powerful. If he could comprehend it, his cultivation base would improve by leaps and bounds. At that time, his ranking and status in the Devil Dao era would also be incomparable. Hearing Extreme Devil Demon Lord's words, Heavenly Talisman Immortal's pretty face was filled with uncontrollable anger. Although she knew that Extreme Devil Demon Lord was luring her to rush out of the satellite city and then capture her, she still couldn't calm down when he mentioned the destroyed Talisman Dao era. "You beasts, sooner or later, I'll make you pay us back tenfold, 100-fold. I'll let you have a taste of what it means to be ruined." Seeing that Heavenly Talisman Immortal's pretty face was a bit angry and moved, but she still controlled her actions, Extreme Devil Demon Lord's face clearly showed a bit of coldness and disappointment. If Heavenly Talisman Immortal took the opportunity to rush out, then it would be completely in line with his intentions. At that time, this city would be like a group of dragons without a leader. How could they fight against their army? It would only be a matter of time before they were captured. The only thing that puzzled him was that the main target they had come to kill this time was Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen had disappeared. It would be best if they could accomplish both of their goals at the same time. In that case, achieving the peak of life would only be a matter of time. Heavenly Talisman Immortal, if you have the ability, then come out and fight with me. I also participated in the battle to destroy your Talisman Dao era. Haha, your Talisman Dao era was completely destroyed in that battle. You should be obedient and join our Devil Dao era. That way, you might be able to preserve the diversity of the era's civilization and be saved. Extreme Devil Demon Lord laughed loudly. "With just you people? Sooner or later, when I comprehend the secret of the supreme ancestral symbol, all of you will die. Heavenly Talisman Immortal shouted. You want to comprehend the secret of the supreme ancestral symbol? I think you should stop dreaming. Even if you can comprehend the secret of the supreme ancestral symbol, you can't be an expert of our devil Tao era. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and hand over the supreme ancestral symbol. When our master is happy, he will let you go. Extreme Devil Demon Lord said coldly. He did not believe that anyone could comprehend the secret of the supreme ancestral symbol. Otherwise, the supreme ancestral symbol would have burst out with its greatest power when the Talisman Tao era was about to be destroyed. However, the truth was that the supreme ancestral symbol did not show any extraordinary side until the destruction of the Talisman Tao era. Although it was somewhat mystical, there was still a gap between it and the legendary divine object that supported the Talisman Tao era. Heavenly Talisman Immortal did not bother to say anything. Countless talismans condensed in his hand and turned into a terrifying attack that ruthlessly struck towards Extreme Devil Demon Lord. Extreme Devil Demon Lord was almost hit. He retreated repeatedly and then roared angrily, "Attack! Everyone, attack! After breaking through the city, leave no one alive." Chapter 34-43. As soon as Extreme Demon Lord gave the order, the Demon Era's army in the distant chaos was ready to set off. Tens of millions of people rushed over. The scene was overwhelming, as if they wanted to completely cover the entire world. Swish, swish, swish. Countless sharp arrows were launched first, piercing through the sky like missiles. They directly bombarded the huge satellite city, but were blocked by the boundaries and formations on the surface of the satellite city. These formations had been activated all the time for the past few days and had never stopped. Although the power of these sharp arrows was terrifying, and each arrow could penetrate a mountain, it was impossible for them to penetrate the city's defenses. But for a moment, the defenses of the entire city were boiling. Then, countless captured slave experts from various eras took the lead and attacked the formations and boundaries, trying to capture the entire city. They had no other choice. They could either die on the way or die in the hands of the Demon Era's experts. The war broke out instantly. The slave experts from various eras were like ants attacking a city. They used their flesh and blood to break the various restrictions and boundaries in the city. In such a great battle, quasi-emperors fell in droves, and sovereign emperors also entered the battlefield. This time, due to the orders of the Demon Epic's Extreme Demon Lord, the Demon Epic's army did not wait for the talismans and slave to be exhausted before personally leading the army to attack. For a moment, the entire city's defense pressure increased greatly. The emperors of the Demon Era continued to attack. In this situation, not only Mu Huang, but Bian Xiaoye and the others also attacked without Yi Shiwen's order. They were also very clear that if the city's defenses were breached, it would be a terrible situation for them, especially in a situation where there was a terrifying demon lord on the other side. No matter how much confidence they had in Yi Shiwen, they did not dare to put all their hopes on him. For a moment, the situation of the battle was extremely tragic. Experts from all sides fell like dumplings. The entire city was dyed red. Even in the chaos that spread around the city, many powerful chaos creatures began to wander around, swallowing many corpses when they had the chance, and then retreating. In this chaotic scene, even the many ferocious beasts that lived in the primal chaos appeared to fight for food that was rarely seen. Fortunately, Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerate would take action from time to time to defeat the demonic Tao Era's army. Otherwise, the entire city would have been on the verge of collapse. Even the Extreme Demon Lord would attack from time to time. Although he didn't have many opportunities to attack, every time he did, the entire city would tremble violently. His power was even more terrifying than the combined attack of millions of people. Especially the fight between Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable and Extreme Fiend Lord. It was an eye-opener for everyone. Two peak experts of different epochs fought. Laws danced chaotically as if the world was shaking. But as time passed, Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable started to fall into a disadvantage. Her injuries had not healed. They were only slightly better than before. Just defending the city was already very taxing for her. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable. Let's see how long you can last. No one in this world can heal the injury from that palm strike. Let's see how long you can last. Extreme Fiend Lord laughed heartily. Everyone come out. There's no need to hide anymore. She eavesdropped on our conversation earlier and knows our plan. We won't be able to fool her. Extreme Fiend Lord's voice had just fallen when two figures emerged from two different directions of the city. One of them was covered in scales. His limbs were like aquatic webs, and his body was surrounded by torrential waves. The other demon had very little demonic appearance. He had the appearance of a middle-aged man, but his demonic aura surged to the sky, surpassing the other demon lords. This was a sign that he had refined demonic aura into his body and was no longer releasing it. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked and despaired. They didn't expect there to be two powerful heavenly venerates hiding in the dark. How could they resist? Demon Venerable Spirit Snake, Demon Venerable Myriad Star, you two finally came out. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable was not the slightest bit nervous in the face of two hidden super experts because she already knew that there might be more than one Demon Venerable. It was just that Extreme Fiend Lord and the others didn't know that besides Martial Venerable Yi Shiwen, Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable was also here. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable, I thought you had run away. I didn't expect you to be hiding here. Ha ha! Obediently hand over the supreme ancestral symbol, and we will spare your life. Demon Venerable Spirit Snake, whose fingers and toes were covered in webs, was overjoyed. As for Yi Shiwen, he had completely forgotten about him. Compared to the supreme ancestral symbol, Yi Shiwen was nothing. He was just entrusted by the Moon City Lord. So what if he couldn't complete it? Could the Moon City Lord really do anything to them in the demonic Dao era? As long as they could obtain the supreme ancestral symbol, it would be the greatest harvest of this trip. Demonic Venerable Myriad Star, who was beside Demonic Venerable Nimble Snake, didn't say a word. Instead, he made his move. His move contained the might of thunder and blazing demonic light, which turned into a terrifying attack that blasted on the city. In an instant, the entire city was penetrated. Countless barriers and restrictions were smashed to pieces on the spot, breaking into endless dark holes. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable's pretty face finally turned solemn. Among the three Demon Venerables, Demon Venerable Myriad Star was a true fourth realm existence. He was also the most dangerous among the three. If the others were said to be barely able to resist, then Demon Venerable Myriad Star was an existence that truly made her feel danger. No, we can't let him break through the city's defenses. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable reacted almost immediately. She formed hand seals, and countless talismans turned into balls of light and flew out, continuously repairing the holes. Countless arrays and boundaries were also instantly repaired and strengthened. She immediately understood that she could only resist by relying on the city's defenses. Once the city's defenses were broken and she was left alone, the danger level would instantly increase by several levels. How can I let you do as you wish? Demon Venerable Myriad Star sneered. He immediately sent out a terrifying light beam and ruthlessly blasted it into the city. Rumble! Immediately, the entire city shook violently. Many of the martial epics experts in the formation were shaken by this strike. They felt their chi and blood surge. They nearly died from the shock. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable's snow-white face also turned somewhat red. This attack directly shook her body. The other two Demon Venerables also seemed to have noticed this. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable's cultivation had not recovered yet. Her injuries had not healed yet. Otherwise, how could this have happened? Kill her while she's down. They clearly understood this principle. They attacked one after another. All sorts of horrifying moves rained down. Each move could destroy a boundless galaxy and a world. Now that all of them landed on this city, it was easy to imagine how terrifying it was. Everyone in the city was shivering. Even an emperor lord seemed insignificant in the face of the attacks of these heavenly venerates. In the void, Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable floated in the air, emitting a dazzling light. Talisman lights continuously burst out from her hand, supporting the entire city's defenses by herself. However, under the joint attacks of several people, her delicate body also trembled slightly. Finally, after an unknown period of time, Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable spat out a mouthful of blood. She could no longer hold it in. The entire city's defenses finally broke. Without Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable's protection, the already crumbling city's defenses finally could not hold on and collapsed. Countless demonic epic armies took advantage of the situation to attack. War cries pierced through the clouds. Oh no, the city's defenses have been breached. As people who had lived in the primal chaos for a long time, they knew very well what would happen if the city's defenses were breached. Not a single person in the city would be able to leave alive. Whoosh! At this critical moment, an astonishing sword light tore through the depths of the city, turning into a terrifying torrent that swept out. Wherever it passed, the army of the demonic epic that was charging in was annihilated in an instant. No one could escape from this sword. Whether it was god monarchs, quasi-emperors, or even the two demonic epic sovereign emperors charging at the front, they were all annihilated by this sword. There was no difference. This sword made no difference. There was no difference in strength or numbers. This change alarmed everyone. No one had thought that such a change could happen at this critical juncture that was about to be breached. With a single slash, hundreds of thousands of demonic epic armies were annihilated. Heavenly Venerable. There's another Heavenly Venerable hidden in the city. The demonic epic armies were dumbfounded. However, they quickly reacted and realized that there was another Heavenly Venerable hidden in the city. No matter how ostentatious they were still too weak in front of a Heavenly Venerable. Who is it? Demon Venerable myriad stars, ocean-like eyes burst out with a terrifying light as he pointed towards the depths of the city. The other two demon venerables also looked over. At this moment, a figure stepped on a sky full of multicolored lights and appeared in front of everyone at lightning speed. Chapter 3444. It's a martial venerable. It's really a martial venerable. Many people in the city were overjoyed to see him. They were all aware of Yi Shiwen's existence. It was just that Yi Shiwen was in closed-door cultivation, so they didn't know his specific situation. This person was none other than Yi Shiwen. He went straight to Heaven Talisman Immortal and said, "How are you? Are you all right?" "I'm fine. It's just some old injuries." Heaven Talisman Immortal heaved a sigh of relief when she saw Yi Shiwen appear at the crucial moment. Facing the joint attack of 3 Heavenly Venerables, she would have no problem if she was at her peak. But now, she was no longer comparable to her peak. "You've worked hard just now. Leave the rest to me." Yi Shiwen smiled and said, Heaven Talisman Immortal nodded and disappeared into the air. She trusted Yi Shiwen completely. She didn't even stay to help and left everything to Yi Shiwen. "You're that martial venerable?" Demon Venerable Spirit Snake looked at Yi Shiwen and asked. They weren't stupid. How could they not guess that this should be their main target? Martial Venerable Yi Shiwen. "I'm too lazy to talk to a dead man." Yi Shiwen's eyes were as sharp as a knife. He looked at these Heavenly Venerables indifferently. He flew straight out of the city's protective range. Now that a big hole had been broken in the city's enchantment and restriction, the defensive power had been greatly weakened. "You're courting death." The nimble snake demon lord's eyes shone with a dazzling light. He spread his body slightly, and it was as if he was about to burst the vast primal chaos. Nothing could stand against him. The word demon on his body was like the origin of the world. It turned into a terrifying great path and rushed towards Yi Shiwen, suppressing him. Demon Venerable Spirit Snake wasn't an ordinary person. He had also cultivated to the peak of the third realm. However, Yi Shiwen didn't panic at all. He just waved his arm abruptly. It was as if a long saber had been unsheathed. A blazing immortal light erupted from his hand. It was as if a real long saber had slashed down. Puff! The terrifying attack unleashed by Demon Venerable Nimble Snake was easily shattered by Yishiwen. It was as if the sky and earth were being split apart. Then, Yishiwen slashed it again. Yishiwen was floating above the city. Looking from afar, one could see his domineering and desolate silhouette engulfing the chaos. He was just standing there with his hands clasped behind his back. But he had an indescribable aura. Nothing could stop him. His stature was imposing, and he was immersed in a supreme temperament. Just when everyone was immersed in this terrifying scene, countless sword principle laws were condensing above Yishiwen's head. Then, they blasted towards Demon Venerable Spirit Snake at lightning speed. Wherever the sword light passed, the entire area of primal chaos would collapse. Under this terrifying power, nothing could continue to exist. Everything was silently destroyed. Yishiwen took the initiative to launch an attack. He wanted to behead Demon Venerable Spirit Snake. However, how could the spirited serpent demon ancestor be willing to give up? He immediately roared, "What an arrogant brat! Do you really think you're a match for me?" His body, every part of his body was shining, tearing apart the sky dome. The demonic light swept across and met Yishiwen's handblade. Boom! The terrifying attack exploded in an instant, forming a terrifying frenzy that spread in all directions. The spirited serpent demon ancestor's counterattack was quickly neutralized by Yishiwen's handblade. But Yishiwen's handblade didn't slow down at all. It quickly landed on the spirited serpent demon ancestor. How is this possible? The spirited serpent demon ancestor was taken aback. His attack was easily neutralized. As far as he knew, Yishiwen was just a newly advanced third realm heavenly venerable. Speaking of which, Yishiwen's qualifications were too shallow. He was nothing in front of veteran experts like them. Therefore, he didn't really take Yishiwen seriously from the beginning. But everything that happened just now was completely beyond his expectations. However, his reaction was also extremely fast. In an instant, his body glowed brightly. He was sublimating, and a huge demonic snake that was thousands of miles long appeared. Then, he pounced towards Yishiwen. His figure was like a dragon, and it was boundless. He opened his bloody mouth and revealed a cruel smile. His snow-white teeth looked incomparably eerie. Compared to him, Yishiwen was just like an ant, incomparably insignificant. But Yishiwen still didn't panic. Soon, his hand blade landed on the body of the spirited serpent demon ancestor. Bang! An incomparably loud roar resounded. Yishiwen's hand blade directly landed on the huge body of the spirited serpent demon ancestor. Waves of supreme aura erupted and spread out. The demonic light on the body of the spirited serpent demon ancestor turned into a terrifying wave. It erupted with extreme power and drowned Yishiwen. However, Yishiwen let out a long roar in an instant. Terrifying aura surged all over his body, and his battle chi swept in all directions. His body seemed to be able to prop up the mythical world, flowing with dazzling light. It almost tore the demonic light that erupted from the body of the spirited serpent demon ancestor in an instant. Then, Yishiwen's hand blade directly broke through all the protective shields on the body of the spirited serpent demon ancestor and directly landed on his body. Bang! The body of the spirited serpent demon ancestor was hit on the spot. Countless scales exploded, and blood and flesh were everywhere. Then, the terrifying power dispersed into the body of the spirited serpent demon ancestor, causing him to bleed constantly. His huge body was constantly stirred up and down in the chaos, and he screamed endlessly. It was just a simple attack, and the arrogant spirited serpent demon ancestor was injured. He kept retreating, seemingly injured by Yishiwen's sharp edge. Yishiwen's attack saved the crisis in the city. In particular, when everyone saw Yishiwen teach a lesson to the spirited serpent demon ancestor so easily, everyone in the city cheered. From Yishiwen, they saw a chance for survival. They wouldn't have to worry about the demonic epic breaching the city, slaughtering the people, and becoming slaves. The other two, Demon Ancestor Myriad Star and Demon Monarch of Extreme Malice, looked grave. If it were them, it would be very difficult to injure the spirited serpent Demon Ancestor so casually, especially Demon Monarch of Extreme Malice. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to reach the level of a professional. At this moment, they finally understood why Yi Shiwen became a great threat to the Moon City Lord, and why he didn't hesitate to contact the people of the Ancient Epoch to help him eliminate this guy. As people of the Ancient Epoch, although they had some contact with the experts of the Martial Epoch, they didn't have much contact. Every time they made a move, the price was not small. Usually, they didn't want to know each other and didn't contact each other at all. Clearly, there was a reason for this. This guy was indeed difficult and scary to deal with. Yi Shiwen didn't pursue further. The spirited serpent Demon Ancestor took advantage of this opportunity to retreat. Then, he turned back into his human form. However, his chest was already badly mutilated. It was the place where Yi Shiwen's handblade had injured him. When he looked at Yi Shiwen again, his eyes no longer had the arrogance and despotic look from before. In this short exchange, he felt like he had walked between life and death. As the saying went, there was great terror between life and death. You dare to come and kill me with this kind of strength? You must be tired of living. Yi Shiwen sneered and finally spoke. I can suppress trash like you with a flip of my hand. Where did the Moon City Lord find you? Martial supremacy, you actually know about the Moon City Lord. It seems like you know a lot of secrets. I won't let you live today. At this moment, a horrifying killing intent flashed in the extreme Demon Lord's eyes. It seemed like Yi Shiwen had discovered the big secret between them and the Moon City Lord. This was the biggest problem. Although this kind of thing was very common, it couldn't be exposed publicly because it was so common. Once it was exposed, it would still cause a huge uproar. Ha ha ha, you think you could do it? Yi Shiwen laughed heartily. His laughter spread throughout the primal chaos, making the hearts of the Demon Epic's army pound wildly. He was truly an unrivaled superpowerhouse. The people of the Demon Epic emphasized the law of the jungle, where the strong preyed on the weak. Because of this, it was easier for them to worship those who were strong. Even their enemies would win their respect. Yi Shiwen took a step into the primal chaos. His entire person was like an unrivaled god that created the entire universe. His hair fluttered in the wind, and he was unparalleled tyrannical. He took a step forward, and his gaze was like a cold knife. You people are already outdated. You don't know how powerful this epic is. Today, I'll let you taste the power of my martial epic's extreme martial way. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and arrived in front of the extreme Demon Lord. His palm trembled, and countless runes flew out, forming a terrifying attack that blasted directly at the extreme Demon Lord. He used an unrivaled killing move right from the start. He wanted to kill all the demon supremacies of the Demon Epic. This would become his contribution and help him become the Eastern Heavenly Venerate. The extreme Demon Lord roared. His entire body was bathed in golden light, and he looked like a golden god of war. Then, he held a long spear in his hand and thrust it at Yi Shiwen's face. Rumble! The long spear collided with the countless runes that Yi Shiwen blasted out. The spear radiance shot out and swept in all directions. With the point of collision as the core, heaven and earth trembled. The violent waves swept out, even broke the primal chaos. At this moment, a long saber with a severed head appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. It was the long saber that he had obtained after killing the sacred concealment Demon Emperor. The saber radiance cut through the primal chaos, and it was about to slash the extreme Demon Lord in half. Chapter 34-45. The saber light swept across, breaking through the chaos, and directly slashed towards extreme Demon Monarch's face. The saber set off a whistling gale. Yi Shiwen casually slashed down. It was ostentatious and domineering. His black hair fluttered in the chaos, blasting everything in its path. Extreme Demon Monarch had no time to react. His previous spear momentum was already used up. It was not like Yi Shiwen's sudden saber momentum, which was powerful and terrifying. Pucci, the saber directly slashed Extreme Demon Monarch. In an instant, blood splattered and bone fragments flew. Roar! Extreme Demon Monarch retreated again and again to avoid the range of Yi Shiwen's saber momentum. Blood dyed the chaos red. One of his arms was chopped off by Yi Shiwen's saber and then fell into the endless chaos. No one knew where it fell to. Such a fast saber. Extreme Demon Monarch's eyes flashed with a somewhat incredulous look. Yi Shiwen's saber was too fast, and its power was also terrifying. It easily chopped off one of his arms. But this saber belongs to the sacred hidden demon emperor. Did you kill him? Extreme Demon Lord quickly recognized the origin of the decapitated saber. He was too familiar with it. He and sacred concealing demon emperor weren't good friends. On the contrary, they had been fighting openly and covertly for many years. However, it was also because of this that he was very familiar with sacred concealing demon emperor's items. Because of this, when he saw this saber, he felt a chill run down his spine. Because Yi Shiwen was more terrifying than he had imagined. How could a person who could kill the sacred hidden demon emperor be ordinary? Yes, I killed him. He was just a person who overestimated himself. Yi Shiwen sneered. At this time, Demon Supremacy Myriad Star and the others finally guessed why Yi Shiwen knew the Heaven Talisman Immortal and cooperated with him. It was probably because he killed the sacred hidden demon emperor. They only knew that the sacred hidden demon emperor had set out to find the Heaven Talisman Immortal, but there was no news of him after that. But they did not take it to heart, because the celestial venerables could casually go into closed-door training for tens of thousands of years. It was only a short month. If they had not seen the saber fall into Yi Shiwen's hands with their own eyes, they would not have believed such a ridiculous thing. Even if you come here today, there won't be any difference between you and him. Yi Shiwen said faintly. He held the long saber in his hand, and the saber light trembled in the universe. The buzzing sound rippled across the entire battlefield. He's really courting death. Let's go together and kill him to avoid any future troubles. The nimble snake demon supremacy had completely recovered. The injury on his chest had also healed in a short period of time. Now that he had recovered to his peak state, he walked in the primal chaos. Every step he took was like thunder, rolling in the primal chaos of the universe. If we attack together, we'll die together. But it saved me a lot of time. Yi Shiwen roared loudly, and a powerful aura erupted from his body. The blazing rays of light that had sublimated his magic power flowed in the void at an even more terrifying speed. Whoosh! Yi Shiwen rushed to the front of the nimble snake demon supremacy in an instant. His whole body was surging with a terrifying aura, and his battle aura swept in all directions. His body was indomitable, and he wanted to open up a new world. The aura of a supreme expert suddenly burst out, facing Yi Shiwen, who had suddenly appeared in front of him. The nimble snake demon supremacy rarely encountered such a situation that even he couldn't react to it. However, he was a battle-hardened veteran. His black hair stood up, and his eyes were bursting with dangerous light. He had already suffered a loss because he had underestimated Yi Shiwen. This time, it was naturally impossible for him to fall for the same problem again. The martial technique in his body started operating, and his aura became even more violent. His whole body became crystal clear, as if it was cast by colored glass. Even the flow of his blood could be seen clearly. His martial technique had been raised to the limit, and then it turned into a pair of terrifying fists. It was unparalleled and domineering. This was the strongest attack he had ever made in his life, and he might not be able to achieve such an amazing attack again in his life. Yi Shiwen wasn't frightened by the sudden eruption of the nimble snake demon supremacy. On the contrary, he held a long saber in his hand and slashed down again. Rumble! The saber light directly blasted into the fist light, as if a boulder had been blasted into the boundless ocean. In an instant, a terrifying raging tide was set off, and it rolled back towards the two. Walalala! This terrifying frenzied tide bombarded Yi Shiwen's body. It was like a raging wave slamming against the shore, slamming against a boulder's body. The entire wave was smashed on the spot, and the strong wind blew against Yi Shiwen's clothes, making a flapping sound. However, he didn't move an inch. The divine radiance that was spreading out seemed to be opening up a new world. Unlike Yi Shiwen's calmness, the nimble snake demon supremacy was forced to take a few steps back by this terrifying raging tide. Only then did he finally remove all the power, and a bit of fear flashed through his eyes. It was just a simple saber, but it was able to erupt with such terrifying power. It was indeed rare since ancient times, and only a limited number of people could reach such a level. It was just a single strike, and his offensive was destroyed in an instant. How can he be so strong? However, Yi Shiwen just let out a long roar in front of him, and it shook the surroundings. Then his figure rushed over, and he slashed down with his saber again. This is no longer your era. It's already good enough that you've been able to prolong your existence, but you still refuse to realize your mistakes. How dare you make our fortune divine dynasty your enemy? Then die thoroughly. Yi Shiwen's long roar made the many experts of the Fortune God dynasty in the city feel extremely relieved. These ancient eras were indeed very powerful, and they had created incomparably glorious achievements in ancient times. But so what? After all, it was already the past. This was their era, and they were the protagonists of this era. It was just that they were too weak to shout such words, and it would only be a joke if they shouted it out. But Yi Shiwen could. The nimble snake demon supremacy roared angrily, and his eyes suddenly opened. At this time, when Yi Shiwen's saber momentum fell, he had no way to avoid it, and could only choose to face it head-on. The saber light directly slashed onto the two fists. Rumble! There were explosions everywhere in the primal chaos that was filled with endless danger. The saber light fell on the two fists, and countless sparks burst out. Then, the saber light broke through the fist light, and with terrifying power, it directly slashed the fists, and blood splattered all over the sky. Poochie! In an instant, bone fragments flew, and blood splattered. The long saber directly cut off the hands of the nimble snake demon supremacy. In the face of Yi Shiwen's absolute tyrannical strength, the magic that the nimble snake demon supremacy cast was completely useless. His entire fists were cut off, and the nimble snake demon supremacy immediately let out a blood-curdling scream. He kept retreating and fell into the chaos. Countless chaos invaded his wounds, and in the chaos, there were many vague chaos creatures that began to frantically fight for his fists. Every part of the body of a heavenly master was a treasure, and they would instinctively fight for it. Even if it was just a drop of blood essence, it would be a great supplement for them. After the successful attack, Yi Shiwen didn't let the nimble snake demon supremacy escape this time. On the contrary, he directly chased after him. His whole body was bathed in golden light, and he was like a golden god of war that could break and destroy everything. At this moment, Yi Shiwen was invincible, and no one could stop him. He was invincible and shot out like a cannonball. Then, another saber ruthlessly slashed down. At this moment, a long spear directly rushed out at the critical moment and stabbed towards the saber. Clang! An incomparably loud collision sound was heard, and the sound of metal colliding expanded. The saber still slashed down, and the spear couldn't stop in the end. However, it still managed to buy some time for the nimble snake demon supremacy, and he managed to dodge the saber slash at the critical moment. Even so, one of his arms was directly cut off, and blood splattered everywhere. The nimble snake demon supremacy screamed again and again. This saber slash almost took his life. Although he managed to escape, it was just a small matter to him. Escaping from death caused him to feel rather fortunate. He'd never imagined that an encirclement that should have been easy to accomplish would actually encounter such a situation, and it actually almost caused him to perish within it. However, facing the situation where his saber was blocked, Yishuan only took a step forward, and the long saber dragged in the chaos, tearing a huge black crack, and launched the pursuit. He didn't care about the extreme demon monarch and the myriad star demon supremacy at all. In the end, the extreme demon monarch spear could only cause Yishuan's saber to deviate slightly. Just now, his arm was also cut off by Yishuan, and he was seriously injured, so he couldn't further stop it. At this moment, the myriad star demon supremacy finally made his move. As soon as he made his move, the sky was filled with stars, and the stars covered the entire world. He took a step forward and directly intervened between Yishuan and the nimble snake demon supremacy. The starlight that filled the sky formed a horrifying galaxy, and it came crashing down towards Yishuan. Everywhere the starlight passed, the chaos collapsed endlessly, turning the rotten into the magical. It was extremely terrifying. In terms of strength, it was unknown how much stronger he was compared to the nimble snake demon supremacy and the extreme demon monarch. I also know the magical power of 3 heads and 6 arms. Yishuan laughed loudly, and he didn't panic. He transformed another head and 2 arms. This head and arms went directly towards the horrifying galaxy, and a punch blasted out the 6 paths of reincarnation. The 6 paths of reincarnation continued to rotate, and it actually absorbed the starlight. Every time it rotated, a large amount of starlight would be absorbed. Meanwhile, his main body took a step forward, and he directly slashed at the nimble snake demon supremacy with a broken head-long saber. Evil must be eliminated, and weeds must be cut by the roots. Chapter 3446. How could Yishuan not understand that it was better to cut off 1 finger than to injure all 10 fingers? The long saber in his hand swept down. This saber wasn't any technique, but Yishuan's comprehension of the great Tao, which was completely integrated into this saber. When it slashed down, it had an ancient and distant momentum. What? Demon Venerable Spirit Snake was shocked. He didn't expect that Yishuan would still be so courageous after Demon Venerable Myriad Star intervened. He wasn't trapped at all. One must know that Demon Venerable Myriad Star's strength was the strongest among them, and it wasn't just a little bit stronger. This time, it was agreed that Demon Venerable Myriad Star was only here to hold the line. He didn't intend to take action personally. In their opinion, it was enough for the 2 of them to join forces. At best, Yishuan could contend with any one of them, and that would already be very impressive. However, in reality, not only Demon Venerable Myriad Star was going to take action, but even they were also in danger. Puchi, the demonic saber in Yishuan's hand, turned into a ray of light. The demonic saber was invincible, and it directly fell on Demon Venerable Spirit Snake's body. Blood splattered all of a sudden. The demonic saber slashed into Demon Venerable Spirit Snake's body. Blood and flesh became a mess, and bone fragments flew everywhere. Yishuan's saber had seriously injured him. His body was slashed into 2 by Yishuan's saber. He screamed continuously, and his body kept twisting, transforming into his huge body. At this moment, his body was also slashed into 2 by Yishuan, and he no longer had the arrogant and despotic look from before. He could only try his best to survive under Yishuan's demonic saber. Roar! Demon Venerable Spirit Snake, who was slashed into 2, roared. He was like a giant dragon stirring in the chaos, and blood sprayed in the chaos, causing many chaotic beasts to fight over it. Yishuan's saber was too terrifying. Not only did it slash his body into 2, but even his spirit was severely injured in an instant. Yishuan didn't stop, and he continued to attack. This wasn't the time to stop, but he had to completely eliminate Demon Venerable Spirit Snake. How dare you? Devil Ancestor Myriad Star let out a deafening roar. Yishuan's unbridled attack had completely infuriated him. Yishuan didn't even put him in his eyes. Why are you so anxious? Sooner or later, it will be your turn. Yishuan wasn't worried at all. In fact, his expression was incomparably cold. Demon Venerable Myriad Star took a step forward, and a long sword appeared in his hand. Starlight filled the sky, transforming the rotten into the magical. It slashed down, almost splitting Yishuan into two halves. Yishuan didn't dodge, nor did he evade. He forcibly withstood this sword. This sword fell on Yishuan's body, setting off a burst of blazing light. With his body as the core, it instantly soared into the sky. As the sword slashed down, Yishuan also attacked at the same time. With a backhand slash, Demon Venerable Spirit Snake's body was split into two halves from the middle. His huge body was split open from the middle on the spot. The Spirit Snake Demon Exalt, who was already heavily injured, was unable to hold on any longer. He shrieked miserably as he was reduced to ashes. His soul was also completely reduced to nothingness by the demonic saber. It had even severed the soul that he had entrusted to the heavenly Tao of the Void. He was completely destroyed in an instant, without leaving a single trace behind. Demon Venerable Myriad Star's attack didn't succeed in killing Yishuan, and even Demon Venerable Spirit Snake couldn't protect him. He was immediately seething with anger. Demon Monarch Extreme Polarity was completely shocked. He knew very well that Demon Venerable Myriad Star was clearly a top expert of the fourth realm. Among heavenly venerables, the difference between each realm was like heaven and earth. A fourth realm expert was much stronger than a third realm expert. How could Yishuan easily take an attack from Demon Venerable Myriad Star, who was in the fourth realm? You're not in the third realm, you're in the fourth realm. Demon Monarch Extreme Polarity was dumbfounded. He thought of the most likely outcome. Yishuan was definitely not in the third realm, but in the fourth realm. The information given to them by the Moon City Lord was wrong from the beginning. If he had known from the beginning that Yishuan was a fourth realm expert, he wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess. What a joke. Although they weren't like the heavenly venerables of the fortune realm, it didn't mean that it was easy for them to enter the fourth realm. Similarly, they also understood the gap between the third realm and the fourth realm. Damn old man. They had already vented all their anger on the Moon City Lord. If they could leave this place alive, they would definitely make the Moon City Lord pay the price for what he had done. Falsely claiming that a fourth realm expert was in the third realm was clearly sending them to their deaths. They couldn't help but suspect whether this was a trap from the beginning. A trap that lured them here. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that it was possible. After all, the difference in strength was so huge. Could the Moon City Lord not have sensed it? Or was it a trap from the start? As for the fact that Yishuan had advanced by leaps and bounds in such a short period of time, they didn't believe it at all. It was simply too illogical. The cultivation of a heavenly venerate couldn't be accomplished overnight, let alone complete the transformation within a month. This had already completely surpassed their understanding, so they couldn't believe it at all. That's right, I'm already in the fourth realm. Yishuan laughed heartily. Indeed, while no one was paying attention, he had already stepped into the fourth realm. In just 1 month, he had accomplished something that other heavenly venerates might need decades to accomplish. It was just that he had just broken through, so he hadn't revealed it. It was precisely because of this that he had been a wolf in sheep's clothing that he had killed Demon Monarch Spirit Snake. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easy for him to kill Demon Monarch Spirit Snake. However, there is no point in continuing to hide it now, because everyone could see that he had killed Demon Monarch Spirit Snake. It was precisely because of the calamity breaking incense and the others that he said the Moon City Lord had made a mistake and wanted Demon Monarch Spirit Snake and the others to never return. No wonder, my attacks couldn't pose a fatal threat to you, Demon Monarch Myriad Star said repeatedly. His expression was filled with killing intent. He had lost face because he hadn't been able to stop Yishuan just now. I've already said that you'll end up like him. What's the rush? Yishuan laughed, unfazed by Demon Monarch Myriad Star's anger. All of a sudden, a huge hand reached out from the city and grabbed the corpse of the spirit snake demon sovereign into it. A sentence suddenly appeared in Yishiwen's ears. I have a use for Demon Monarch Spirit Snake's corpse, so I'll borrow it first. It was Senior Heaven Talisman who had taken action. Yishiwen didn't care about it. At this time, he and Senior Heaven Talisman had formed a strategic alliance. He had such a powerful helper, and Senior Heaven Talisman could also use Yishiwen to achieve his goal. It was a win-win result. Seeing Heaven Talisman Immortal taking Demon Monarch Spirit Snake's corpse away, Demon Monarch Myriad Star's expression turned even colder. He wasn't that close with Demon Monarch Spirit Snake, and they only gathered together because of the Moon City Lord's mission. However, he couldn't tolerate someone mocking him right under his nose. This was a slap in the face. Demon Monarch Myriad Star looked at Yishiwen, and a sword appeared in his hand. It seemed to be condensed from countless starlight rays. The sword rays crisscrossed, and everywhere it passed, there were specks of starlight. It was as if night had fallen, and it illuminated the chaos. He simply chopped down with his sword, and sword lights were everywhere. Every sword light transformed into the sun, moon, and stars, and shrouded the entire chaos. It enveloped Yishiwen in an instant and wanted to kill him thoroughly. Yishiwen didn't have the slightest fear. This time, he didn't use a long saber. Instead, his hands tore the sky full of golden light. This sword ray that shrouded the sky was actually torn to pieces by him. He was invincible. Not only was his saber technique tyrannical, but his body was also extremely powerful. After tearing apart Demon Monarch Myriad Star's attack, Yishiwen didn't stop at all. He directly rushed towards Demon Monarch Myriad Star. Ever since I entered the fourth realm, I haven't fought with an expert of the same realm. It just so happens that you're also a fourth realm existence. Then, let me experience the difference between a fourth realm Demon Monarch and Demon Monarch Spirit Snake. Yishiwen's words directly hit Demon Monarch Myriad Star's heart. This was a battle of wills between both sides. Although Yishiwen's movements were incomparably fast, his words didn't take Demon Monarch Myriad Star seriously at all. Instead, he treated Demon Monarch Myriad Star as a whetstone to sharpen his saber. However, what kind of person was Demon Monarch Myriad Star? He naturally wouldn't be moved by Yishiwen's words. His eyes were ice cold, and he took a step forward. Facing Yishiwen, he unexpectedly stabbed out with his sword and attacked first. Facing Demon Monarch Myriad Star, Yishiwen quickly displayed his supreme strength as a fourth realm expert. He wasn't inferior to anyone. The sword rays were like countless falling stars, directly smashing towards Yishiwen. In the void, a huge battle formation was formed, and its power was greatly increased. Yishiwen himself was incomparably brave. He directly charged left and right in the entire void of the sword light battle formation. A casual punch was able to create a huge hole in the starlight sword light battle formation. The sword rays fell on his body, but they couldn't do anything to him. They couldn't truly hurt him. However, Yishiwen didn't directly attack Demon Venerable Myriad Star. Instead, he used his hands to prop up a protective shield. No matter how terrifying the opponent's sword light was, he was able to block it. He was able to block it completely. Every attack was blocked. It seemed like he was verifying something. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.